Hello, and welcome to Addicted Like Us, a podcast discussing all things written by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I'm your host, Haley, and today I have Allyn, aka Allyn Fireheart, with me to talk about Hothouse Flower, Book 5 in the Addicted series. This will be part 2 of the Hothouse Flower discussion. Just to clarify, as a quick recap, I'm Haley, a longtime reader and lover of Krista and Becca's work. I'm also a part-time illustrator, and I had the privilege of working on the special edition covers for the Leica series. Now, I just love to spend my time talking about all my favorite books, aka anything written by Krista and Becca. So the Addicted Like Us podcast was created so I can sit down with friends and discuss all of our thoughts. So let me reintroduce you to Allyn.
Oh, and now I have to
You have to share again.
Okay, good. Um, hey.
I was drinking something. This is a take on here.
Okay. Hey, I'm Allyn. I have been a fan of Krista and Becca's work for about 2 years now. I started reading the Addicted series, I think back in late 2022, December or so, and finished reading the Addicted series this time last year and recently read the Like Us series over the summer. I've since also read all the other amazing books, like the Circus is Family series that everyone needs to go read.
Excellent plug.
Yes, of course, obviously, how could I not? And Dishonestly Yours, and all of the above. Anyways, now I'm just known as one of Haley's friends. Haley's Allyn is what they call me. So that is kind of where we are now in life.
You are mine.
Yes. My favorite title.
Yes. Okay, as a quick recap of what we discussed in part 1 of Hothouse Flower, we are finally getting to meet Reich and Daisy. We have learned that Reich's dad, Jonathan, is currently in the media about with a rumor that he has molested. Media speculation has caused Lo to relapse, and Reich is kind of working towards helping Lo become sober again. Meanwhile, Daisy is working at Paris Fashion Week, and she was just kicked out of a fashion show, and she felt pretty violated by the experience, and she called Reich to come and help her. She called Reich to just air out what happened and be sad about it. And Reich took the opportunity to fly out to Paris and come be with her. And they finally are together. We suffered through like a third of the book.
37%.
A third of the book, waiting for them to be together, and now they are finally they've decided that they want to be together. It'll be in secret for right now, just until her family will take the news a little better. And that was roughly where we ended. So I forgot to add it at the beginning before I recapped everything, but also spoiler warning if you haven't read Hothouse Flower, hopefully you aren't jumping in at part 2 of a discussion for a book you haven't read. But if you have not read Hothouse Flower, come back after you have read it so that you will not be spoiled. You have been warned. Hi, it's Haley from the future. I'm popping in really fast. We unfortunately had a little bit of technical difficulties, and there was a chapter's worth of discussion and audio that we lost. So I'm going to summarize that chapter, but basically the chapter that we lost is right after Reich and Daisy finally kiss in the stairwell and agree that they want to be together. We find out who else joined Reich in Paris, and that is Lo and Connor, which just brings a really interesting dynamic to this group because Daisy's not usually by herself with these 3 men. So it's a different kind of group atmosphere that they're all trying to figure out at the moment. On top of that, there is a rugby game. The Rugby World Cup is being held in Paris. And of course, it's Fashion Week, which is why Daisy's there. So all of the hotels are booked. And that means that Connor was not able to secure a hotel room for the guys. So they all have to crash with Daisy. And We basically see a lot of this new group dynamic. The guys are just trying to figure out how to be with Daisy. Like Lo is trying to be very older brother like, and Connor too. Um, and Reich is over here trying to maintain that same friendship that he has while not pushing Lo's buttons, but also with this added knowledge that like he's now dating Daisy. So there's like this extra step. There's this extra layer to his relationship with Daisy now, and it's just balancing all of that. And I think the one other important bit to mention is Connor telling Reich that his mom, Sarah, is planning to do an interview where she does a tell all about what's been going on with Jonathan and her divorce, and potentially could talk about Jonathan and the molestation rumors. So that was what we missed. There was a lot more to the discussion than just that brief summary. But unfortunately, there was no saving the audio. So now back to the normal podcast. All right, so let's pick back up where we were, which is the first night that all the guys and Daisy are in Paris. And Daisy has gone to bed, like has fallen asleep, and Reich knows what's coming. He says he can't sleep because he knows it's coming. And Daisy has a night terror, basically starts shouting and kicking, and it looks like she's awake, which confuses Lo. Lo is convinced that she is actually awake. Her eyes are open and everything, but she's screaming, "Get away, leave me alone. I don't want this." And it's just, oh God, I don't want to imagine what is going on in her poor brain, what it is that she's picturing. Lo tries to help her and she starts wailing on him, and then Reich tries to hold her down, and in her state it feels like something else is happening to her and it's even worse, but he doesn't want her to hurt him. He doesn't want her to hurt herself, and she winds up slapping him and cuts his lip because she's wearing a very heavy ring. But Reich does finally wake her up. And meanwhile, so Lo and Reich are trying to figure out, like, Lo's trying to figure out what's going on, wrap his head around what's happening to her. Reich is trying to figure out a way to wake Daisy up. And Connor's just standing there.
He's just watching. He's on the ground watching.
Yeah. But Daisy finally wakes up, and she does share what it was that she was dreaming of, that there were men stabbing her, which is awful.
And I love the childlike way she describes this, and because Lo says, "Who's them?" and she said, "Bad guys." I mean, it's just so innocent. Like what's happening to her just kind of strips you of all the power and strength that you have, or that you would have in your normal day-to-day life. She's just like, I can just see the little kid in her saying, "Bad guys were trying to get me," you know?
Yeah, I know.
Makes me so sad.
Yeah.
And of course,
So,
Connor sees
right
the whole
after
thing.
waking up, oh yeah,
Connor sees the whole thing and says, essentially, Reich says, "I haven't seen this before," whatever. And Connor says, "You haven't seen her like this before?" She said, "Why would you think I have?" "Because you're the closest person to her and you don't look surprised." And it's just, again, in this moment, Connor knows everything.
oh yeah. They live in the same apartment together. I mean, right? Maybe I don't know if that was the moment to lie about this. If this is really the thing that you can lie about, obviously you're
Right.
the closest to her. And then Daisy's arms wrap underneath mine, clutching onto me tightly. My brother gives me a single warning look, like, you can't lead her on. His concern is warranted, but no part of me wants to disentangle her from my body. Just like she's holding on this one safe thing that she has, her pillow, her safe space. Lo, don't take that away from her.
I know. It's.
Wow.
I was flipping through this annotated copy that Thomas gave me, and he even said literally the only person that doesn't want them to be together is Lo. and Thomas wrote, "Lo, get over it," in the book. And I'm like, you kind of like want to scream at him in these moments because clearly Reich is the only thing helping.
Yeah, why would
Lo, get over it.
go get out of here?
You see these moments where clearly Reich is the only thing helping, and Lo is like giving the death glare to Reich, and you're like, Lo, get over yourself.
No,
What?
do you want Daisy to just suffer? Is this the
Right.
alternative that we would rather have?
Oh my gosh.
So, after all of that, Reich tells Daisy that she needs to go back to sleep. And she's so scared because obviously, like, that was a horrible nightmare, and who would want to try and relive that again? But he does urge her, and Connor, meanwhile, like, while he's doing this, Connor's over here, like, Reich, I need to talk to you right now. And Reich's like, no.
Good timing.
Reich does realize in this moment that Connor knows. Like, there's a lot more that Connor understands. Yes, he sees all, and he's trying to delay that fight, that argument that they're gonna have. And so then this was kind of that thing. I hate that he kind of he is this caretaker, and his whole thing is wanting to take care of her, and he can't in this moment
Mm-hmm.
because the rest of the guys are there.
Yep.
It's I just want to hold her, even if I told my brother the truth. I can see Lo kicking me out of the room, tossing my bag in my face, telling me to get on a plane. And it's just this his innate, like, his whole nature is to take care
Mm-hmm.
of who he loves, and he loves Daisy and wants to help her, and he can't even do it in this moment because if he helps her, he's doing wrong by his brother.
Yeah. Yeah,
And so
I'm just so done with Lo at this point. Like, I think that I have a love-hate relationship with Lo for a lot of reasons, but this really adds to my frustrations with Lo. Because I am such a big Razy supporter
yeah.
that I just have issue with Lo here. I wish that he were real so that I could smack him across the face, but
There are things, though. So the end of this chapter also talks about I wonder if the only way to move forward is to unearth my past with my brother. I don't know if I'm ready for that shitstorm. I just want to forget with him. But I wonder who's been the stronger brother all this time. Lo has confronted our father. He's worked out his feelings. He's rebuilt a relationship with him while trying to stay sober. I'm the one who can't deal. Maybe that has to fucking change. And I do think there is some part of this relationship that that Lo has with Reich where, like, yes, Lo is throwing up these roadblocks that really don't need to be in place when it comes to Reich being with Daisy. But I can see it from Lo's perspective where Reich is just not, he wants to be real, like, and he wants to be real, and his whole friendship with Daisy is built on don't be fake with me. But
hmm
there's, I don't think he's being fake, but he's definitely hiding things
yeah.
from Lo, and Lo can sense that about him, and it's hard to feel like you're on a really stable foundation when you feel like there's things that you're missing. I can understand that Reich is trying, and he does say, like, maybe I'm not ready to face that shitstorm, but you do need to deal with your past a little bit.
Yeah,
Like that,
100%.
you can't just experience it and completely throw it to the side and be like, no, it has nothing to do with how we're going to move forward in the
Hmm.
future. Like, without addressing it, I think as
Right.
by hiding it, it makes it a little worse.
Yeah, and I think it's so insightful and wise of Reich to have arrived at that place,
Yeah,
where he's like,
he can at least
this is what I
recognize it.
need to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's for anyone not an easy thing to do, but
No,
for
at all.
somebody who wants to just run to the finish line 150 miles per hour, no brakes, like that's especially
Hmm.
hard to have to stop and go backwards instead.
Yeah. Yeah. And like he talks about it with wanting to be with Daisy. He can't go, he doesn't want to go in reverse. He just wants to
Yeah.
move forward. So the next day, Reich and Daisy are walking around the city, and they're being followed by paparazzi. and they're asking why Reich has his busted lip.
Oh.
And they arrive back at the hotel and they get inside, and obviously the paparazzi is not allowed to come into the hotel. But Daisy still she sees a flash,
Mm-hmm.
and realizes that that was completely in her imagination. She thought it was there and it actually wasn't.
Yeah, which is really where you start to see the PTSD
Yeah.
start to set in.
Yeah. And Reich has her try and recount. Like her therapist makes her talk about what happened as like this way of trying to help her heal and
Mm-hmm.
move through her trauma. So Reich has her do the same thing. That's something that he makes her do. But they talk about, so she recounts it, and then at the end it's like, and then I moved out, and that was that. But Reich goes, those 10 months when you moved back home, it was 10 months I couldn't placate your anxiety. I couldn't shield you from anything that came through your doors. I was in a hallway away, not a floor, not a room. I was a half an hour from you days, and we both fucking know it was those 10 months that changed you. And again, it's like, what the fuck happened? We still
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it was in these 10 months where Daisy was at home in Villanova. So like during her senior year of high school, we don't know what was going on.
Right.
It keeps getting brought up that something happened, but we don't know what it is. And then she tries to give the family ring back to Reich because that's what she was wearing when she slapped him, and that's what caused her to hurt his lip. She mentions that it's a family crest, and she feels like it's pretty meaningful. And Reich just does not care. He's like, yeah, you can have it. I don't want it back. It's not that meaningful. It's my dad's, and he gave it to me. It's not like it was passed down by generations. Of course, Jonathan would get himself a coat of arms.
Of
If
course he would.
Yeah.
I find it strange though that Wright gave that to Daisy when it was from Jonathan.
He needed to offer something up for
I
that pen.
know. Well, I find it strange that Daisy. I don't know. It's just it has become this symbol almost of them of like that even when aren't romantically together, like he has been with her for those few years
Yeah.
with that ring, and it's interesting that it was Jonathan's,
Yeah, it is.
or that Reich wears it in the first place.
That he would have held on to it. Yeah, it
Right.
is interesting that he would even have it. I don't know. I don't know why.
I mean, I think that there's, as a child who has a parent that you have a difficult relationship with, you're always kind of hoping to have it restored. And so, I don't know, I can speculate, but
Yeah.
who actually knows except Krista and Becca?
Yeah. So they get on the elevator, and Reich decides to take the long way back to their floor. So he like presses floor 28, even though they aren't on that floor, just so they can make out in the elevator for a little bit. But at a certain point, people do wind up getting on, and it's these two Russian girls. And at one point, it looks like they are talking about Reich and Daisy. They're like glancing back at them while Daisy's kind of showing PDA to Reich. I think she's like
Mm-hmm.
touching his hair or something like that.
Something like that.
And Reich notices that these girls are looking over at them, and he speaks to them in Russian.
Such a
I love
flex.
the narrator. I don't know. I can hear her so clearly in this moment when she puts on the Russian accent. She goes, "Cute couple."
Yeah. So funny. It's almost like when you're getting your nails done and you know that they're talking about you in
Oh
a
yeah.
different language. And you're like, Thomas has always said, what if we learn the language so that we can say, I know what you're saying?
Oh yeah. I
You
always
know, like,
it would be so cool.
but it's
But
kind
yeah,
of one of
Reich.
those moments.
It is. Reich can actually understand them and
Yep. And
speaks
a lot of
fluent
other
Russian.
people.
Can understand and can speak it.
Right.
So,
We should also point out that Daisy's on the elevator.
she is on the elevator, but she's with
She,
someone that she trusts.
right. For a long time. Like
Yeah.
she's on the elevator for an extended period of time.
Indeed. But through this, we learn that Reich can speak Russian, Spanish, which she already knew,
Hmm.
French, and Italian.
Yep, and English.
And English, yes, obviously.
So five.
Um, but
Hmm.
then Daisy realizes that if he speaks French, he understands what Rose and Connor are saying
Yep.
to each other. I
Ugh.
just love, he's like, it's all stupid stuff.
Except for, of course, when it's not.
Yeah. And then she's like, why didn't you tell me that you could speak Russian? Shouldn't your first fucking question be, what are those girls saying? And she's like, I already know what they were saying. They were saying something about about them listening to our conversations and
Oh my
eavesdropping, and you
gosh.
said something snarky back. Am I right?
Yes, you are.
Where did we leave off? I don't even remember.
When Reich is there in the elevator and he speaks Russian, and we find out he can speak three other languages too.
Okay. Well, now your sound sounds off.
My sound?
It sounded tinny, like you were far away from your mic.
I have been this close to my mic at all times.
I know. And now it's different. Fuck this.
What? Hold on. See if it has something.
That kind of sounded normal.
That sounds normal?
Yeah, that sounds back to it.
Okay, great. I'll just keep my AirPods out then.
Okay.
All
I don't
right.
know what to tell you.
You're having a time.
Yeah, we are. God. Okay, so we learned that yes, Ray could speak. Oh, it was the. And then she said something snarky back. Am I right? When did you get so fucking smart? Didn't you hear? It was my second wish when I fell upon a magical lamp. Be smarter than Connor Cobalt. He doesn't know it yet.
My favorite. I literally highlighted that. I was like, thank you so much, Daisy.
So cute. All right. She also asks if Reich has ever told Lo about knowing different languages, and he's like, no, it's part of him, but it's a part that he doesn't like to remember. And it's kind of going back to that whole, well, there are certain things about his past that maybe he doesn't like to revisit, but I think it would be beneficial for building a more solid
Hmm.
foundation, considering the fact that Reich and Lo's relationship kind of it all started based on this lie that Reich was just this random stranger trying to help him when in actuality it was his brother helping him.
Right.
I think in this instance, Lo knowing more about Reich, even a few of the more painful parts, which this is painful, but like just knowing more about his brother would
Hmm.
probably help bridge that divide that they seem to be struggling with right now.
Yeah, and I like how for both Reich and Daisy, they have this innate ability to love the things that they didn't think were lovable.
Yeah.
And because like Daisy is like, thank you for telling me, like she just loves all of him, and then he grabs her hand and holds her hand while they walk out together, and it's probably like a no-brainer thing for Wright to do, but it says it has her heart on fire, which I love.
I know you wrote that it makes your heart melt while it makes hers on fire. Like your heart is
Yeah,
on fire and then it melts.
melts me.
So then Reich gets a call from Connor, and apparently he and Lo went shopping and they
Mm.
went to a bar, and while Connor was not paying attention, ordered a drink. And apparently while they'd been shopping, the paparazzi had been following them and shouting questions about this molestation rumor. And it's been stressing Lo out. And he needed to take the edge off by apparently getting a drink. And Connor, or Reich wants Connor to take the drink away from him.
Hmm.
And he's really mad at Connor. Don't try and rationalize my brother's addiction. He's sick, Connor. But Connor is calling because he wants Reich to come down and be the bad cop to Connor's good cop, which is this whole thing about that Reich really struggles with at the beginning of the series, where I think he finds there's some unfairness that he has to be the hard ass and the bad cop while
Hmm.
Connor can kind of be in Lo's good graces. I think he
Right.
struggles with that a little bit, but
Sure.
it does make sense. It's the fact after our conversation that Reich is coarse and like he will strip Lo and Connor is this soothing balm that helps heal Lo. It's like it sucks that these are the roles they have to play and there is some unfairness in it, but also like it it kind of fits where they naturally who they naturally are as people. That Reich kind of fits more as the bad cop for Lo, that he has to really give it to him straight and Connor can be like this kinder hand for him.
Yeah, I still like I hesitate to fault Connor with anything, but I do still kind of fault him for letting Lo order a drink. Or like from when he realizes it,
Yes.
not saying something. Because I don't know. I just
I do wish he would say something. Yes.
right. And like he doesn't have to go full on bad cop, but like, hey man, aren't you sober?
Yeah.
Like, what's
I
going
didn't
on? Like, I kind of, I struggle to see why Connor doesn't say anything because he's smarter than everybody else. Like, that should have been the move. Like,
I
it really should
wonder
have been.
if it's just that he knows that Lo knows that Connor is aware that he got this drink. But they do talk about how Connor is aware that like when Lo is struggling, he needs to feel like someone is in his corner. And I wonder if Connor just thinks that even saying like, "Hey man, what's going on here?" is just backing Lo into this corner where he feels like he has no one. And I don't know if this is also an instance where like Lily might have I don't think Lily would have been in his corner. She would have been saying don't drink. It's also that like it's just Connor and Reich and Daisy and his other support like the rest of Lowe's support system isn't there. I don't know if
Yeah, it could also be
some
Connor's
rational
lack of experience with friends, too.
yeah.
Um,
I also wonder if because Reich is over here finding the unfairness in it, but there's also this idea that like Reich is family.
yeah.
As much as he feels like he's in this position where he could be pushed away very easily, maybe Connor sees it differently, where he is the friend to Reich's
Hmm.
family, and that if Connor pushes the wrong way, he's actually the one that could be pushed out more easily than Reich could because
Yeah, I don't know. I just part of me agrees with you, and part of me is like Connor's not that insecure.
yeah, he's not. It feels weird to suggest it
Say
that way,
that.
but I don't know if I don't know what's going
I
on.
just don't know. This is like maybe one of the only times I really look at Connor and I'm like, that's not the Connor I know. You know, like
That's fair.
so I don't know if that was intentional or if I'm just reading into it incorrectly. I'm not at all saying like that what they wrote was not the right Connor because obviously the right Connor is whatever they wrote. But
Right.
I have a hard time rationalizing
Yeah.
this Connor with the Connor who
Cares about Lo and his sobriety.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't know. All right. Well, Reich and Daisy leave the hotel and are going to the bar to take care of this with Lo. And while they're walking, the paparazzi are following, and then Reich's like, Daisy, you need to move. And she doesn't. She like stands in his way. He's like, all right, fine. If you're not going to move, then. And he picks her up and throws her over his shoulder. Just keeps walking with her.
Love that. And I love her saying, one of the cameramen saying, kiss her right. And Daisy locks eyes with him and says, I don't kiss boys who ride motorcycles. Yes, you do.
Lies. So they get to the bar, and Reich goes right up to Lo and confronts him about what he's doing. And he asks the bartender to make whatever it was that Lo is having.
I like how he describes Lo. He says, looking like a murderous little fuck. That's just, that is like the best way to describe Lo.
Yes. I can absolutely picture him just like
Yeah.
that. So Reich gets this drink. He's playing chicken with Lo, and Reich drinks, and he broke his sobriety for the first time in 8 years.
Yep. To prove a point.
Yes, but even when so like he drinks it and he knows that he just broke his sobriety. Like he can taste the alcohol in it, and obviously that means that Lo also broke his sobriety. And then he tries to go in for another drink, and Lo grabs it from him, and like he's trying to say that, oh, well, if you're this much of an asshole sober, I'd hate to see what kind of an asshole you are drunk. But I think there's definitely a part of Lo that's like, fuck, I just
Yeah.
caused my brother to break his sobriety, and I can't deal with this guilt, and steals the drink from him. Like,
Yeah.
all right, that was it. That was all you're gonna get. I do appreciate that he can at least see what's happening there.
And I feel like the whole book, which I know that we're about to get to this, but this chapter specifically starts out right here. And by the end of it, we're at like up here at the peak of this
Oh,
entire book, honestly.
yes.
But you just start to see things like going downhill really quickly,
Yeah.
starting with low drink.
Mm-hmm.
Like things were like, okay. And now low drank, then Reich drank, and then the next thing that happens is Reich having to deal with Ian.
Yes. So Daisy's out on the dance floor with Christina, and Ian's there, and Reich can immediately tell that this guy was her weird fucking guy.
Right.
And basically, Ian kind of insinuates that his night with Daisy was better than Daisy described it. So we
So
know
he's
he's,
a liar.
yes, filthy liar, that, or he's just completely delusional and truly thinks that Daisy enjoyed all parts of that when she clearly didn't. And again, that he's delusional. But he says some rude things, and Reich punches him, which we can all support. I am in full support of that violence.
Yeah, and I can't help but like as I'm reading this chapter, like I didn't even remember until about halfway through, until about this right after Reich punching him, that I'm like, gosh, this is just really shitty for Reich tonight.
Yeah.
And I start feeling this panic of like, wow, Reich is having to deal with a lot of shit. Like,
Who's taking care of him?
who's taking care of Reich? Like, you see Reich go rescue his brother from Connor. So he's also having to deal with Connor, and then Daisy's over here, and so he's having to run back and forth, and you start getting this like, almost like
When
this
yeah,
panic of like, gosh, give him a break.
yes. When
And
does
then
he get to breathe?
you just don't get it in this chapter.
Nope. Nope. It just keeps building and building and building.
Which is, I say this to applaud the writing,
Yes.
because they're making you feel exactly how Reich feels and
Yes.
how you're supposed to feel for what's coming. So, Krista and Becca, if you're listening, I think you're amazing.
A plus plus.
A plus plus.
Okay, so they all leave the bar. Sans Ian, but it's Daisy's bringing Christina along with them. And as they're leaving, we know the rugby game has ended, and a lot of the fans are out in the street, and they're walking. I think it's mentioned that there's construction scaffolding that is around and on the street near
Yeah.
this bar. So the fans of the two teams start getting in a fight, and it escalates to the point that it turns into a riot, and all of our main characters that we're following get swept into it. And this is told in the perspective of Reich's POV. So Reich immediately loses track of Lo and Connor and Christina and Daisy. Like, he just loses everyone, but he does find Christina, and he pulls her out, and then he's going in trying to find someone else, and he sees Daisy, and unfortunately what he sees is Daisy standing there, and then some guy grabs a 2x4 and swings it right into Daisy's face, and she goes down. And this is Reich just immediately jumps into action and goes straight for her, and when he gets to her, he can tell that she's bleeding, and it's just not a lot of thought, just do. And he does hear from a French local, that the ambulance is stuck in traffic. It's not going to get here. He asks how far the nearest hospital is, which is 3 miles away, and he just runs. He has Daisy in his arms and he goes. And yeah, that's how that chapter ends. There is zero break for poor Reich at this point.
I just read the last part of the chapter and started crying, so just 3 miles with Daisy in my arms. I can fucking run that in 15 minutes or less. First of all, that's really fucking fast. That's like a 5-minute mile.
Yeah.
Like, even without, like, even as a track star, even without somebody in your arms, that's really fast.
That's so fast.
So he's saying he's in the 4-minute mile club. Okay, so I mumble thank you and just fucking take off. Her head bounces against my chest only a couple times before I adjust her. I have carried this girl so many times in my life, but this time, this is the absolute worst. I run 150 miles per hour. I don't fucking stop, not for anything. I just keep going. It's what you're good at, right? It may be the only thing.
It's the only thing in this moment.
I just don't. And it's the way that he says it, like, he's not self-loathing.
No.
He just truly is like, no, this is the only thing I'm good at, is I know how to run. Like, I know how to go 150 miles per hour, no brakes.
Yeah.
And keep moving, keep going, and never stop.
Yeah.
And obviously just the fact that he's carrying her for 3 miles.
That he'll always carry her. He'll always carry her to safety.
Okay, you don't have to go that far tonight. Okay.
Well, Reich gets her to the hospital, and they immediately admit her to take care of her. And Reich calls Connor and finds out that he and Lo are okay. And Reich tells him that he's with Daisy. And Connor asks if Daisy is alive, and Reich says he doesn't know. That he didn't even stop to check. I could have been carrying a girl without a pulse for 3 miles. I didn't check. I just ran. No thoughts, just take care of Daisy.
No thoughts, just take care of Daisy.
Okay, well, then next chapter, they're still at the hospital, and they aren't allowed to see Daisy yet. And then Reich gets a call from Jonathan. And even though he wants to ignore it, he does talk with him, and Jonathan's like trying to check in both of his. I think he can't reach Lo. Lo's phone is broken. It was broken in the riot. But he's worried about both of his sons because they were photographed near. They were obviously photographed near where this riot started, so they're kind of under the impression that they were involved in it. And then Jonathan says he loves Reich and reminds Reich, if you don't believe me, check your name, which is, again, this name thing.
Yeah, but, I don't think Reich is ever going to look at that and be like, yeah, he loves me.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a slight, you know?
It's not a symbol of love to him.
It's not.
If I would see that more as just like a stamp of ownership.
No, same. Exactly.
And Reich still doesn't know how to trust his dad at the end of that phone call. And we learn that Rose and Lily aren't planning to come to Paris, even though Daisy is in the hospital. But also that
Connor wants to go.
Yeah, he meets up with Connor. So it's Lily and Rose aren't coming to Paris, even though Daisy is in the hospital. And Reich is kind of mad at this. And Connor turns it around where he's really mad at Reich about everything that he's been keeping secret. The fact that Daisy is having sleep problems and hasn't told anybody.
Yeah, and you also, I do think that Connor was right in saying, like, has anybody called Samantha? And Connor says no, Samantha doesn't know anything, and Rose wants to let Daisy decide whether they tell their mother now or later. And so, like, you start to see that, like, not just Reich, but the other members of the Core Six want Daisy to have her voice.
Yeah.
And they notice that it's been taken away from her and she should get to decide. And I just like that it's no longer, it seems like this really is the turning point for Daisy.
Yes.
That, like, it's no longer just her and Reich against the world. That she now has at least Connor and Rose too.
Yes.
And I think that that's relieving for Reich, that to
Yes.
know that like Connor, even though Connor's mad at him and he's mad at Connor, and this is always where they end up, the two of them, with
Yeah.
they are always on the same side.
Yes. It's not that Connor is mad that he's with Daisy, because Connor does not care about that. He just
No, he
cares
doesn't.
that Connor and Rose are very, like, they are,
The parents.
yes, they're the, I mean, that's the other group, the Hot Temper Triad, but we also have the older kids club, and that's
Right,
Connor, Rose, and Reich.
right.
And Connor and Rose are more the type that they want to be in everyone's business, and they're being kept out of business purposefully, and that annoys them and makes
Yeah,
them angry.
and I don't think they just want to be in business. And I know this isn't what you meant by this, but like they don't want to just be in their business. They like want to do it with them.
Yes,
They're
they
like,
want,
let's figure this out together.
right, they want to help, and
Right.
they understand that they're very smart, and they are people that you would want by their side, and they want to be by your side to help, and they're being sidelined, and they don't like that.
Yeah.
But then, so Reich does, I feel so bad for Rose. I mean, this is, I know it's about Daisy, but I also feel for Rose in this moment, because Reich starts explaining to Connor about what's been going on with Daisy, all of her problems. And Connor's like, Rose is going to be so upset that she didn't pay enough attention to her. And it was discussed in Kiss the Sky that Rose really wanted Daisy to move in with her sisters at the end of Princesses of Philly, because she could see what Samantha was doing to Daisy. And also, she didn't want to miss any of the signs the way that she said she didn't want to make the same
Mm.
mistakes that she did with Lily, missing all of these signs that Lily was struggling. And we've come to find out that Rose is actually missing all of the signs.
She is, but it makes me so. And I know that she will also be thankful for Reich,
Yes.
but it makes you thankful that it's a Reich in her life and not a Low in her
Yes.
life. Which we love Low, but
We
like,
do, but Reich is not enabling any.
no.
He is actively trying to help her, but I feel for Rose that she wanted to have the second chance with one of her sisters,
Yeah.
and she still kind of dropped the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, she did. But I do like seeing the protective side of Connor, and Reich even says that he likes to see that.
Yes.
Where Connor is not saying don't be with Daisy. He's just saying if you're not wanting a real relationship with her, I'm telling you now, as her brother-in-law, back off.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm like,
He invokes the brother-in-law status.
hello, who is this?
I love
and
it.
and he's like, I do appreciate it more than I'm letting on, and I think that Reich and Connor's friendship is probably my favorite relationship in any of the books. Maybe Connor and Daisy, I don't know, but like Reich and Connor are so similar in so many ways, and that respect that has to happen. Like the love
Yeah.
doesn't need to happen between them.
No.
It's just respect.
Yes.
And Reich respecting Connor in this moment is like probably a big moment for him too, where he's like, he's on my side. I need this tonight.
Yes, he did. He needed a little win.
Yeah. Especially from Connor after it seemed like he wasn't on his side earlier.
And then Connor's like demanding, also similar to when they were looking for Lily's sex therapist. It was Rose and Connor vetting all of the therapists, potential therapists, and Connor's asking for all of the doctors that Daisy's seen for all of
Right.
these sleep problems, and Reich's like, I've actually already done that because she's my fucking girlfriend.
Yeah. And then Connor's like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, Reich's like, I don't need you to do my job for me. My job. Yeah, his job is taking care of Daisy.
Right.
We know.
And then we go into the extremely heartbreaking end of chapter. Heartbreaking plus almost like the sun will come up tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of get this feel of, right, I'm just going to read it.
Yep.
I haven't always done the right thing, Connor. I say, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying so hard to look after my brother and her. But if I'm hurting them, then you need to tell me right now. I meet his gaze, no pretenses, no jokes. The severity in our postures makes it hard to breathe, and I tell him something from my fucking soul. I don't want to ruin anyone's life by being in it. That was never my intention. Connor lets out an exhausted laugh, and tears actually brim his eyes. I don't, okay, hold on. Connor
Connor
crying does it
crying?
for me. No. Right. He shakes his head and rubs his lips. He drops his hand. You ran with her in your arms for over 3 miles. Your brother's existence caused your parents' divorce, and yet you gave up most of your time and energy to help him through his sobriety. How can you possibly think you're a pain in their life? What you've done for them, it's nothing. Absolutely not. It's nothing short of heroic, and if you can't see that, then you're blind, my friend. A hot tear rolls down my cheek. I'm so fucking tired of being alone. I was scared that he'd tell me to fucking leave because that means going back to a life I can't see for myself anymore. Daisy has changed that for me. She made me comfortable to share my life with someone else, to live for happiness in the company of others. My solitary future looks bleak, but my future filled with my brother, my friends, her, there's nothing fucking brighter. She's the sun, I'm the dark. If she's gone, I can kiss that fucking light away. Without her, I know I'll never see it again.
Just gut punch after gut punch after gut punch with the
It just,
endings of these chapters.
it just doesn't stop.
It's also good. We're just sitting here reading the book back to listeners.
Oh, you wanted an audiobook instead? Here you go.
Just yeah, the fact that he feels like he can be pushed aside and he's so afraid that like he's trying so hard to be that to be there. He wants to be there, but yeah, he's the the one that came in late and like to question whether he's ruining their lives. In the instance of Lo, it's like Lo would not be sober right now if Reich weren't in his life. There's just the fact that he questions it. Am I ruining their lives? There is
But I mean,
drama that surrounds them that he doesn't get along with his brother very like they're still butting heads, but there's no
right.
doubt that he's making their lives better.
And there's no doubt for us, but I can definitely see how he got there in his head because this was a bad night. This was a bad night to be Reich.
It was.
And like I just am picturing these two 6'3" plus men standing in a hospital together. Connor's probably got his, I know it doesn't say this, but I like to picture Connor have his hand on Reich's shoulder and he's crying, Reich's crying. I'm just like, and
What a scene. Oof. Okay. Well, the good news is Daisy is alive.
the good news is Daisy Calloway POV.
Yes. I know. We get that continued torture of Reich doesn't know if Daisy was alive. That's how that chapter ended, and it goes right back into another Reich POV. So we're like,
Yeah, and you're like,
where
oh.
was our answer?
Yep.
But yes, Daisy POV means she's alive. She's kicking. She wakes up, and Reich is right there next to her, and she knows something's wrong because obviously she's in the hospital, but she doesn't know. She does not remember what happened, and she starts crying because she's like immediately thinking that she did something. She thinks she did something stupid, like
To
she ran
hurt
out of
him.
traffic
Yeah.
and that he ran after her, and she's so sad and like she feels bad for Reich. She's the one that's hurt, and she's like, did he try and rescue me?
Yeah.
And he's like, Daisy, don't cry. We're gonna get through
We.
this.
Yeah, and she says we. I
Yeah.
focus on this one word.
She also notices that Reich has stitches. He's got
Mhm.
a cut on his eyebrow, and she's like, "It's gonna scar." And she says that Reich's face just breaks because
Yeah.
yeah,
Because, yeah,
because
that's
yeah,
going to scar on that face.
yeah, and and then we get this moment where, oh gosh, so Reich has just gone through this whole conversation of, am I ruining Daisy and Lo's life by being in it? And then Daisy's over here like she feels guilty because if she wasn't in Reich's life, he wouldn't have been hurt in this moment.
Just get a lot of emotions, like the full spectrum of emotion.
But then Reich starts to walk Daisy through her memory of what happened that night. And it gets to the point where she does remember that some guy had a board and hit her in the face. And she feels that there is a bandage on the left side of her face. And she wants to see what's going on underneath it. And so she does finally take it off. And we find out that Daisy has a scar on her face that runs from her temple all the way down to her jaw. And she says, I'll have this scar forever because I'll never be the pretty Daisy Calloway in magazine spreads or down runways. I am no longer a model, but she feels that she is more me than she was before, which is
Ugh.
just, it's, she talks about it. She feels there is this sense of relief that she feels in this moment. Like everyone's waiting for her to break down and cry because this was a traumatizing, another traumatizing moment to add to her sheet, and she's got a physical reminder of it too, and she's over here like, I'm free.
She's like, I thank God I'm not a
I don't
model.
have to be a model anymore. this
Yeah.
is this is my ticket out of this. And that sense of relief comes with this realization like, oh my God, I truly was so trapped, because she can recognize that this was a traumatic moment and this is a horrible thing for her to experience, but she's happy about it. And maybe that's not the emotion that
Normal
she should be
response.
feeling in this moment. But yes, so she is interpreting this as kind of, so hard to say, but like as a blessing in disguise. And
No, yeah, it definitely is. Like
yeah.
I think, and we know from later moments that Daisy wouldn't be Daisy without the scar.
Yeah. So she calls her agency and officially quits being a model. But I love that in this moment, she does use her voice and says exactly what's on her mind when they ask her why she's quitting. It's not because I have this scar and you would no longer think I'm pretty. It's her answer is, I don't love modeling. And
Yep.
I'm so happy that she finally was able to just be upfront and honest. I don't want to do this. I don't love
Yep.
it. And I don't want to do this.
And we get a t-shirt
Yes.
that I think we should recreate.
I think so. I'm a fucking mermaid. Yeah, you are. We love mermaids.
We love mermaids in
We
this
love
house.
Meadows mermaids.
Yes, we do.
But then I can't remember if she talks about whether she's getting ready to leave, like,
Hmm.
and getting dressed. And I can't remember if she actually mentions in the chapter before it starts. But basically, she and Reich start kissing, and it turns into more, and Reich gets her off.
Hmm. Finally.
Yes, finally. But he just starts kissing her and like moving down her body. And
Hmm.
she says that he's like watching her just so he can tell what her expressions are, because like at this point he knows that she has had sex with guys in the past that just don't pay attention to her. It's only about their pleasure and not her pleasure. And that is not the way Reich operates. And he wants to make sure that she is enjoying every moment of
Yeah,
this, like she should. Um,
exactly.
and then, yes, he does get her off, and Daisy finally has an orgasm from another.
She says, finally.
Yes.
And then he says, better than chocolate.
Uh, uh, does she say, is that after? I can't remember if this is the part where she's
After.
like maybe if we try like 5 or 6 more times.
Yes, that's this one.
Okay.
She says, I don't know. I think I need to test this out 5 or 6 more times to make a definitive answer.
Fair enough. You want a lot of data points.
I love it. And then, like, the thing I love the most is that he dresses her afterwards
Yes.
because he is Reich Meadows and he takes care of people.
He absolutely does. And then Daisy shares that she was worried that Reich would want to go back to being friends because of the scar. What we have, what we fucking have. I love you beyond physical attraction. I love you, Days, because you're the wildest fucking girl with the biggest fucking heart. And without you in my life, I'd be the unhappiest fucking guy. He loves her. We get the confirmation. Yes, I love you.
It's and it's so funny because like I remember reading Lily and Lowe's I love you for the first time and thinking like, yeah, of course they do. And I feel the same way in this moment where I'm like, yeah, of course he loves her. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't need the declaration, but the declaration just makes it hit you. It's so good. Like, I nearly have it memorized just because I feel like I hear it all the time. And it's, you're the wildest fucking girl with the biggest fucking heart. And without you in my life, I'd be the unhappiest fucking guy. And then she says, "You love me,"
It
and
was
he says,
such a girl.
and I'm like, that is such a girl thing to do. Like, oh, you love me?
You love me.
And
Oh,
then she says, say it again. He says, I fucking love you, sweetheart. And he smiles at her, which is just the brooding man to
yes.
finally, ugh.
And the beautiful end of that chapter. I've found the one person who makes me the happiest, but I just wonder how long I'll be able to keep him. I wonder if there are too many outside forces pulling us apart for this to last. I'll take I'll take each day as it comes. Live in the moment with Reich Meadows. If I ever die, I want that across my headstone. All
Like,
about the moment with the meadows.
there's just so many quotes. Like, so many big, bold moments at the end of these chapters and like in the middle of these chapters that
I
I
know.
don't know. It's just like it's all just in your face, and you're like, God, it just keeps coming. Like, yes, the gut punches keep coming, but also the like beautiful, beautiful moments just
Yes.
come one after another.
So good.
So good.
And then
Oh, the next chapter.
yes, so the next chapter, Daisy's leaving the hospital and she's like checking with the nurse about everything that she needs to pay. And she looks at the hospital bill and is like, "Where's my ambulance fee?" And they're like, "You have no ambulance fee. He carried you."
You were in his arms when he reached the hospital doors. He arrived 10 minutes before anyone else from the riot.
She feels like she has hit the lottery with Reich.
He's the hero.
He's worth every loud moment, every peaceful silence, the crazy and the sad, the restless and the quiet. I would trade it all to be with him.
And then
And then
let's
it,
just
of
ignore the
course, it
last
ends.
part.
Yep, yep. Just it ends with bad omen, and I don't like. Just we're so happy we're on this high, and just crash back down to earth.
Boom.
Bad omen.
Which thankfully Krista and Becca put that as a little foreshadowing in there because otherwise you would be really caught off guard
Yeah.
and it would like piss me off if I didn't at least have an idea that
Yes,
like,
at least
okay,
remember that it was coming, that it was mentioned
yes,
so when it
right.
was, and yeah. So, meanwhile, Reich is on the phone with Lily trying to figure out what Rose is hiding. 'Cause she's still hiding something from Connor.
And Rose is trying to do blood oaths as she does.
Yes, we talked
This
about
will
this in
not be the last time.
is it Kiss the Sky, I think, that
When she does a blood
oaths I think I said in Kiss the Sky, Connor makes an oath or something to her, and I was like, oaths are Rose's love language.
oath, or especially blood oaths.
Yes. Um, but basic Reich is kind of checking in with Lily too because she's obviously away from Lo. And
Yeah.
the last time they were physically separated like this was when he was in rehab. And that was a really hard time for her. But so he's checking in that she'll be okay with Lo going on this trip with Reich. But she does say that she is in a better place. And we also learned that Rose and Lily are still planning to meet up with them at some point and surprise Daisy.
And we also get, there's a lot in the media right now about Lily and Reich, which I think you see more of in Thrive, I think. And I, you still see Reich putting off
He doesn't care.
himself and
Yeah.
saying, I'm expendable, you aren't. And
Yeah.
Lily says, you can't honestly think that about yourself.
I
And so, like,
know.
even with the awkwardness that comes with having rumors about Reich and Lily in the
Yes.
tabloids,
It
is
could be
that,
awkward for them, but it's not.
yeah,
She
she's
does.
like, no, you matter so much. Like,
Yes. Yeah. I love their relationship.
me too. Are you
Or
wearing an animal on your fucking head? You know what
oh,
it's called.
Wampa.
That Star Trek shit, Lo would kick you for that.
We end that with Reich and Daisy about to go on their adventure with cupcakes and motorcycles. Who could ask for a better
And Reich
ending?
Meadows.
Yeah. Reich Meadows, cupcakes, and motorcycles. Who could ask for
Yep.
anything better?
That's all I want. Sorry,
Mm.
Thomas.
So we are a week into the road trip, and Reich and Lo are fighting.
Of course. First of all,
Um,
I do love that the four of them are on this road trip together.
yes.
It's
It's,
just very funny to me.
oh yeah. Um, yeah, it's still Lo, Connor, Reich, and Daisy on this road trip. Daisy and the boys. But basically, they're fighting because Lily is trying to rationalize what public sex is. And I love her way of thinking. For Christ's sake, she's texting me to clarify public sex. Is tent sex considered public sex if the tent is owned by us? Because some people live in tents. Therefore, that would be a house. And a house isn't public, it's private. Therefore, tent sex is private sex. She's just using like that math logic to get to where she wants that answer to be.
Right.
But Reich had talked with Reich had talked with Lily about having public sex before because he was trying to make her feel comfortable. And Lo doesn't really appreciate that now because at the end of that, it was Reich has a lot of public sex. And it's just, no, we can't be urging, like, this is.
Yeah, which I get.
Um,
And I love Connor losing control and laughing.
yes.
Like, anytime Connor just, like, loses control, it's my favorite thing.
If he's not being stoic and calm and unsurprised, yeah.
It's getting highlighted in the book.
Yes. But then Lo winds up being this hypocrite and says that Daisy having public sex would be gross, even though he doesn't think Lily's gross for having public sex. And Reich also calls him out that, like,
Yeah.
you just think Daisy having any kind of sex is gross, not just
Right.
public sex. And that's a low problem. We also get a little more of Daisy sharing some of her turnoffs when it comes to, like, they're in the car. She's kind of talking hush with Reich at this point. But she shares with Reich what some of her turnoffs are, that like they always want her on top. And she was sharing more of what Reich did with her at the hospital that she appreciated that he was on top in that case. And this was something that I did wind up messaging Krista and Becca about, and apparently it was unintentional, but I found it interesting anyway, which is that Reich talks about the first moment that he ever saw Daisy, where he was waiting for Lily at the Villanova house, and Daisy was in the kitchen. She was eating a pomegranate, and he thought she was one of Rose's friends, and that she was a lot older than she was, and he was very interested in her. But as soon as he learned that she was Lily's younger sister, it was like immediate, nope, never mind.
Yeah.
But I have read in certain texts that the pomegranate was actually the forbidden fruit that Eve ate, not an apple. And I wanted to know if that was
Interesting.
purposeful, that Daisy was the forbidden fruit, but apparently that was completely unintentional.
That's
I
really
did
funny.
I sent them an email and I was like, was that? That's so cool. And they're like, yeah, I don't really remember putting that in there. I still think it's cool either way.
It is cool. I think that's such a great find. I also, like, this is a little bit before that scene, but Daisy's in the car. They're in the car together, and she's trying to roll down the window. And Connor says, she says, "Who locked the windows?" And Connor says, "I did. I'm not getting my first ticket because Reich won't restrain his puppy." And this is my issue with this, is because Lo says, "Hey, don't be calling Daisy his anything." And I'm like, Lo, you're gonna harp on that, but you're not gonna harp on Connor calling Daisy a dog. Lo, come on.
Priorities.
No, it's cool. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I just want Daisy to, like, tell off Lo. Get him.
Yeah. Use your voice in this instance. This is who we want you to use your voice on.
Yeah, exactly, because, like, Lo would listen.
Yes, he would. If Daisy spoke up, he would absolutely listen to her.
He would.
She doesn't. Not in this moment. And Reich also gets a text about his mom's interview, that it's airing that night. And she hopes he watches it, and he is not really interested. But then Daisy asks about cutting her hair. She toys with the idea of cutting her hair, and she feels around. She tries to find Reich's knife. Decides to cut her hair.
I love it.
Yes. Freedom doesn't come with age. It doesn't magically appear when you're a legal adult. It comes when you stand up for what you believe in. Right now, I see a semblance of peace for Daisy. Of that peace for Daisy.
And I love that Connor, whether this is what they intended or not, he recognizes that moment and rolls the window down for her.
Yes.
Like he puts his worries aside so that Daisy can feel the freedom running through her veins.
We're brought right back down with the end of the chapter, which is basically that Daisy called Samantha to tell her that she quit modeling, and Samantha immediately promptly hung up on her. The one
Yeah.
time that Daisy was like finally using her voice with her mother, and her mother like just cut her off, does not allow her to use her voice, took away that opportunity for her to say anything.
Well, at least, sometimes when I feel the need to say something or do something, the fact that I've already done it and
Yeah.
I can't go back on it really helps with the telling the person that you don't want to tell.
Yeah.
Like, well, sorry, I already quit. I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's no going
Nothing
back
happened.
now.
Yep. And then apparently Samantha had called Rose and blamed Reich for all of it, which there's a lot that Samantha wants to blame Reich.
Yeah, I'd like to blame Samantha for some things.
Yeah, there's plenty that I'd like to blame Samantha for. So they go to a steakhouse, and now that Daisy is no longer a model, she's like fully ready to eat whatever the hell she wants.
I love that for her.
Yes, we do too.
Oh, I wish it was that easy, but
Yes. So
alas.
Reich is telling her maybe like yes, absolutely, but maybe start a little slower. Don't eat everything, like the heaviest items on the menu. And Daisy does not listen to that advice and decides to order.
Well, because she has a really good theory,
Yeah.
Haley.
She's got
Is that
a
her stomach is made
steel
of steel.
stomach. And meanwhile, so they're like in backcountry for this part of the trip because they're trying to avoid the media. Mostly because nobody but Daisy's family, and more specifically the core six, are the only people that know that Daisy has this scar. Nobody else knows
Mm-hmm.
about it, not even her mom. And so they're trying to hide that as much as possible. But Lo is still very paranoid while they're out. And then they ask Daisy about her plans for her future.
Oh, I love this moment.
Yes, she says that she's not going to go to college. She recognizes that she can't just sit at a desk all day. That's not the environment that's best for her. But she doesn't know what she wants yet, and she's kind of hoping this road trip will help her figure it out.
Well, and I love how vulnerable she is with Connor in the moment of, do you want me to go to do you want me to? Like, she's still in that people pleaser mode, but she does trust Connor to tell her the truth.
Yes.
And she trusts that
She
what
trusts his
Connor
advice.
says, she can believe and
Yeah.
she can trust. And so when he says, we all want you to do what you love, like, and Connor believes that. Like, Connor believes you don't have to go to college to be successful and
Oh,
to do what you
absolutely
want.
not. And they
And
point
I
out that
love,
Lo didn't go to college.
exactly. And I love that that is the stance that someone as smart as Connor is able to take.
Yeah.
And I really do think that a lot of that's because of Rose. And maybe not, but I do think that Rose's influence of her, like, feminism and, like, doing whatever the hell you want,
Mm-hmm.
I think it gives Connor that much more of an edge when it comes to giving people, like, no, you do what you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do.
So it ends with that chapter ended with them ordering, and Daisy's like, and bring me the dessert menu. And then into the next chapter, she wound up skipping dessert and throwing up everything that she ate. So theory disproven. And Reich knew that she was feeling bad because she refused dessert. That's how you know that Daisy is sick, when she doesn't want any
Right.
chocolate. But they wind up at a motel. They got two rooms this time, so Daisy's in one, the guys are in the other, but Reich has snuck into her room in the middle of the night and they're fooling around. And Daisy wants to reciprocate. Reich got her off. Now she wants to get him off, so she gives him a blowjob for the first time. And unfortunately, right, the chapter ends with Daisy hears the door adjoining the two motel rooms opening, so she pulls away from Reich right as he comes all over her face.
You know, I know that we're about to go right into this. I'm assuming we're about to go right into the
Yes.
next chapter.
Yes.
I love that it's Connor.
Yes. So we know.
Like, it's, if anybody's gonna be like, hey, don't do that. Don't let him do that. It's gonna be Connor.
Yes. And poor Daisy is just so uncomfortable in this moment, and Frank is like trying to clean her off. He was
Yeah.
like, in any other instance, this would be a turn on, but not right now. Like
Right.
Daisy is
Not
just
now.
not
Daisy, I can explain. And Connor's like, no, I know what's going on, okay? Don't
I,
worry.
I I'm fully aware
Well
of
aware.
what this situation is.
Yes.
Yeah, Connor is just so unflappable about all of this, and it's not helping. And he warns them that they need to be, if they don't want anybody to know, they need to be a little less reckless, because he could hear them through the walls. And then Connor kind of makes a dig that he brings up the other guys that Daisy has been with, and he hopes that Reich is different. He says to her, I hope Reich is different. And Reich is like getting so ticked off that Connor is not feeling embarrassed that he's bringing up these other guys, that like just in this moment doesn't totally feel like Connor's being as supportive as he normally is with their relationship. So
Though I do think he's still just looking out for Daisy. You know,
he's looking
like,
out for Daisy in this
he
moment.
is. He's not, he doesn't care about Reich, but I can see how Connor genuinely means, I really hope that this isn't like those other guys for you.
Yes. Yes, but Reich is annoyed.
Yes,
So
of
he tries
course.
to get Connor to feel as embarrassed as poor Daisy by mentioning that Daisy has seen Rose and Connor's video.
Which we knew, like, I think they even mentioned it early on that if anything was going to embarrass Connor Cobalt, it would be this.
And Connor's
Yet,
really not that embarrassed about it. He's more
he's disturbed.
concerned that she was able to find it so easily. And they also are worried when Daisy shares that Lily was the one that told her where the porn site was. They're wondering if
Right,
Lily is regressing. But Reich goes back to the other bedroom, but not before apologizing to Daisy.
right.
She's
And he pushes Connor out, and
yes.
Connor got that signature shit eating grin on his face. Well, he tells Daisy, don't let Right come on your face again.
Oh, thanks,
But
Callum.
yes, he apologizes, and Daisy's so nonchalant about it, which I love,
Oh
that she's
yeah.
just not
I'm
embarrassed.
sorry, Calloway. I like you on me. Not like that. Not like that, but it was an experience.
Yes.
So the next morning, Daisy is watching Sarah's interview on the TV and just listening to her talk and try and justify the that she was the one that leaked Lily's sex addiction. The only way to expose Jonathan, was to put Jonathan under a spotlight. I only saw one way to achieve that, and I apologize for whatever emotional hurt I caused Lily. But she was linked to Lauren, his son. She was tangled in a very complicated family dispute. You sound as though she was cannon fire. Again, I apologize if it seems that way. Like, fuck you, Sarah.
Why are there so many parents that are so bad?
Yes. I don't know. And Reich comes in and he's listening to this interview and he's telling Daisy that this is not how his mom
Yeah,
talks. He can tell that she is putting on a face for the media in this interview, and he doesn't really appreciate that she's trying to do that. But Daisy, in this moment, like, she's trying to figure out and his feelings about Sarah, and then admits that, like, if you want to have a relationship with your mom, you can do that. Like, I hate saying that
yeah,
giving him permission, but
yeah,
like she's
no.
basically doing that. And I think it's Daisy can recognize that having like she's kind of struggled with having her mom in her life. And I think despite the fact that I have my feelings about Samantha, like I think there's some part of her that's grateful that she has this
Hmm.
maternal figure in her life, or at least has her mom to reach out to if she absolutely needed to. And she can sense that Reich doesn't have that. And despite the fact that Sarah was the one that has quite literally caused all of these problems that Lily's had, that Daisy's had, that Rose has had,
Right.
she's still like, yeah, if you want to have that relationship with your mom, you can. That's okay. It's
Well, and I
valid.
think if anyone were to give him permission, it should be Daisy,
Yes.
because the only person that's truly affected by it, that means something, to, because Lo's affected by it, but mostly only because Lily is affected by it.
Yeah.
And so the only person that really matters to Reich that he would need that validation from is Daisy.
Then the chapter ends with, we basically find out that at the end of Sarah's interview that she does not have any proof either way to confirm or deny that Jonathan has molested Lo. So that leaves it all on Reich's shoulders to either prove or disprove.
Kind of the worst of her to do that.
No, like she decides that she's going to be in the meeting. Like she gets her 15 minutes of fame and does that shit all with it. Like, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing
Yeah, that was super helpful. Thanks.
Yes, we appreciate that. So, continuing on their road trip, they decide that they're going to go camping in the Smoky Mountains. And Connor and Lo are definitely not as enthusiastic about this. I'm just like picturing Connor camping is.
And they draw it out for you too, with him and his expensive loafers that sink into the muddy dirt, and how Reich's like, "You okay there, Cobalt?" And he flips him off, which is very unlike Connor. So you know how
out of his element.
Yes.
Yes. So while Lo is helping Daisy kind of set up the campsite, Connor and Reich talk a little more. Because there's a moment where Reich is glaring over at Lo. Lo steps in to help Daisy instead of letting Reich do it. Lo puts his hand on my chest. I've got this. She laughs while he takes 2 chairs off her pile. You're glaring, Connor tells me. But they do talk, Connor and Reich talk more about Reich's circumstances should Greg and Samantha find out about him being with Daisy. Like, how can Reich improve the situation? That he needs to, what is it? He says, if I were you, Reich, I'd stop letting people see the worst parts of me. I'd finally show them the good.
Yeah.
Because Reich is just inclined to show all parts of him. But there are definite, and it would be the good and the bad. It's more that Reich is kind of embracing the fact that he's the spawn of Sarah Hale and just someone that Greg doesn't necessarily like. And Reich is more inclined to just sort of embrace those titles with those people because he just doesn't care to try and improve that outlook that they have on him. But Connor's over here like, well, if you want better results when they find out that you're dating Daisy, maybe you should show them some of the good parts of you. Like they only, so in this is, so it's more that it's not that Reich is showing the bad sides of him. It's more that they just know these worse traits of Reich, and maybe he should make an effort to just show them that there's more to you than just being Sarah's son.
Right. Highlight the good.
Yes.
And then I love how he's looking over at Lo and Daisy, and Lo's talking about her hair, and Reich says her face has never been brighter, even with a scar. And I think that, again, like that's kind of the jumping off point for where we're going for the rest of the series.
Yes.
Is that Daisy is brighter now.
Yes, she is. And then Connor, at the end of the chapter, gets a call. Very quick call from Rose, and the call drops, but he learned enough to know that Lily and Rose are 10 minutes away from the campsite and broke their promise of showing up early. They showed up early and are here to surprise Daisy.
Which I love. I'm like so glad that they were like, no, we need to go be there for her instead of just being in their own little world dealing with whatever they're dealing with. And they finally prioritized Daisy.
Yes, they want to be present for her. Daisy is very, very happy to have her sisters, but she does watch as the both of them go greet Lo and Connor, and she loves that, like, she appreciates that they're being affectionate with their partners, but she wants to be able to show her love for Reich, and she has to keep hiding it. She's so sad. And then Lo insults Rose, and she gets really reactive, and Connor has to hold her back, and she's having like quite a meltdown, and Lo just keeps antagonizing, and Lily is trying to stop him, and it's getting to the point where Connor is having to say something, that's when you know that
That's when you know.
he's reaching a bad point.
I mean, like, and you can even see it that, and I the way this is written, you can see it in your head, even if you're not trying to.
Yes.
Connor is holding Rose and whispering in her ear, and he looks up and says, "Lo, stop." And the guilt washes over Lo's face, and Reich is like, "All right, Lo, let's go do these burgers." But you see this so often with Rose and Connor where he's just like whispering in her ear.
Yeah.
Anyways, you just can see all of this unfold before you.
But so to avoid more of a fight between and Rose, Daisy takes them to a small waterfall so that they can all go skinny dipping.
Granted, Rose doesn't know that they're going skinny dipping.
No,
but
no, she does not. She's just following Daisy because of sisterhood. But when they
right.
get to the waterfall, Daisy's like, "Let's go skinny dipping," and
Of course she
Lily's
is.
like, "What kind of skinny dipping? There's partial nudity and full nudity."
Lily cracks me up.
And Daisy goes for full nudity. But Rose and Lily really want to talk to Daisy about what's going on. And something also to note is that when they jump in, they say that Daisy's really skinny, but Daisy also notes that Lily looks like she's put on a little weight.
Right.
And when she asks, is it just me? Then they say that it's because Daisy's really skinny.
Which is it's true, but that's kind of like a horrible thing to use as like a put off. Like, well, you're just really skinny. And you're like, okay, well,
but
you also are putting on weight, so.
You're putting on weight, Lily.
And then she jumps in.
Yep. And Rose is trying to give her advice on how to tell Samantha about quitting modeling, and just like how to talk with her mom. And then also asks whether Daisy and Reich have fucked yet. She does not care.
She doesn't. And I don't think Lily cares either. I think that Lily just wants Lo to be happy.
Yeah.
More than she cares if Daisy's happy.
Yeah.
Maybe not more. I do think more, but I think Lily wants Daisy to be happy, but Lily cares ultimately about what Lo thinks.
I think she cares about what Lo thinks, but not to the point where she's going to try and enforce the fact that Daisy can't be with Reich.
No, I think she's just concerned about how Lo's going to react.
Yeah, more concerned about where his headspace is, not necessarily supporting the idea of his decision.
No, that's not what I meant by that. I will say there was a line in the back here when she's still underwater, where she says, Reich says I need to let it out to scream. Why scream if it just hurts everyone around you? And I'm just like, this is part of the process of learning to use your voice again, is that you start questioning everything.
Yes. Yeah, because Daisy then wonders, like, how could she ever be so honest with her sister about her sleep problems?
Yeah.
And if it weren't for your sex addiction, I'd be free. So fucking free. You hurt me. She can't say those words.
She can't, and she shouldn't.
No.
Like, that's in therapy, a lot of times they tell you to write a no-send letter.
Yeah.
This is Daisy's no-send letter. And through, like, formulating those thoughts, you figure out a way to actually address it. Mm-hmm. That's a lot more gracious. But you need to get this out of you first. Yes. Because this is valid. Yeah, 100% valid.
This is 100% what she's truly feeling in this
moment. Absolutely. But that's not what you need to say to Lily.
Yes, that's not.
So I love that we get to see both ends of it.
Yes.
Sorry, spoiler, I guess, for the end of the book, but whatever. If you've made it this far, surely you know what happens at the end of the book.
Yes. And then the chapter ends with they discover that they are swimming with a bunch of leeches.
Yes, lovely.
So lovely. So meanwhile, the guys are sitting around the campfire and they kind of think that the girls are taking too long. So they start walking to find them. And all of a sudden, Lo can hear Lily screaming, "It's leaching all of my nutrients!" And Lo takes off his walk, turning into a sprint. Then Hold still, Daisy says calmly. Rose groans loudly. I'm going to murder every one of these disgusting things. Connor matches Lo's pace.
I goes, oh, okay, here we go.
I just love picturing all of these moments where they're just like, oh God, okay, we got to take care of them. Got it. Go, go,
Yeah.
go.
And I think it's funny that Rose's, at least from what we see, her initial reaction is not the OCD.
Yes, it's more
It's
just,
murder.
yes,
Murderous rage.
which we'll take in this moment. That's fair. Kill these gross creatures.
All of the above are fair.
Yes. But the guys show up to the waterfall and it's panic, but they're all trying to help. And obviously, all of the couples kind of pair off. Like, Lo is going to help Lily and Connor's going to help Rose, which leaves Reich to help Daisy, which is something that he would want to do anyway. But it
Yeah.
just so happens that it works out that way. And Reich starts pulling these leeches off, and Daisy tears up and she says, I'm sorry. And Reich's like, you don't need to apologize for this, sweet Daisy. You can be sad, but it
And in
hurts.
pain. Like,
Yeah,
I feel
like
like
that's
they
literal
hurt.
physical pain. It's not even just some feeling that she's projecting
Right.
onto someone. This is literal physical pain. You don't need to apologize for this.
Well, and it makes you wonder how often when she was modeling that things,
Don't want to
somebody
do that.
stuck her with a pin or something like that, and she was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like how much she's conditioned to
I did not think of
feel
it like that, and I hate that you put that in my head.
sorry. She's just so conditioned to being apologetic
Yeah,
because it's her fault that something isn't correct.
yeah,
And I love that Reich is breaking that and he just completely removes that from her.
yes, helps
And
her.
it's a process, but it eventually, that's where they're headed with it is that no, you are 100% yourself. You don't have to apologize for anything.
Yeah. So Reich then carries Daisy. He will always carry her to safety. But he carries her back to the campsite, and when he does like pick her up to carry her away, Lo makes eye contact, and Reich thinks that Lo's gonna tell him to stop, and he's like, "This is just so fucking unfair." But
Yeah.
Lo's like, "No, take care of her. Good, I support this decision."
And he's like, yeah, thanks for the permission. Great.
Yeah. But it also ends with there's no way I'm with her out of circumstance. We chose this because nothing else felt right. Nothing else felt as good. Our greatest happiness has always been with each other.
Yep.
Which, yes, like I keep saying that it just so happens that if those two are paired off, then like it pairs him off with Daisy. But also, I feel like there is free will, Reich and Daisy's choices to be with other people, and they have been with other people up to this point. And
Right.
right, these people, the rest of these men and women that they've dated just aren't the right person for them. They
Right.
know who their right person is, and it just so happens that it works out perfectly that the six of them get paired off this way. But it's
Yep.
not circumstance. They click on another level. There is so much more to their relationship than just proximity.
Absolutely.
So now they're all sitting around the fire after taking care of the leeches. I love that Lily's over here burning her marshmallow, and Rose is on the other side burning her leech.
Again, you get the similar situation, but the different personalities and responses to
Yes.
them. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah. What does she say? It's dead, Rose. Not nearly enough. This little bitch took my blood.
And then Lo saying, how are you not scared to bite her in bed? If you draw blood, does she grab a fire poker? Connor, I'm not a leech. Just so matter of fact.
And then meanwhile, Lily is burning her marshmallow, and she's like, "Extinguish, you mallow, extinguish."
She's so cute. You see so much of, I know this book isn't about Lily, but you see so much of her personality come out as she's healing from her sex addiction.
For sure. I
Like,
always
it's
think it's,
beautiful.
I just remember because I would not read the beginning of the series as often. When I used to read, it was more that I would just pick out scenes. I wouldn't actually sit down and read a full book. I was more just picking out scenes that I wanted to read, and I would read a lot of different scenes throughout the later books because obviously that was when things were happiest. And when I started going back and rereading from the beginning, I always thought it was so strange that like this isn't the Lily that I know at this point. She's Like there is some of her personality, but it does
Yeah.
not come out more
Same
until
with Connor.
yes,
I mean,
Connor
Connor's
for sure.
completely different, which they explain that a
Yeah.
lot because he's that way so that he can schmooze people he wants to schmooze. But yeah, Lily and Connor are definitely completely different characters by the end of the series.
Yeah. I think it's funny the certain things that cuz I read it and then would not go back and just I would read certain scenes like I said. So there was definitely a point where I thought Reich was the oldest, that
Mm-hmm.
he was older than Connor and Rose. There was definitely a point where I had that in my head. And it took me a long time to actually get that Rose
I
and
mean, he's
Connor.
close.
He's close, but Rose and Connor are actually older than him. I had that in my head for a long time. But Rose brings out magazines while they're all sitting around the fire because she has this idea that they can throw these magazines with these horrible headlines about them into the flames so they can burn the negative energy. And it just sucks reading all of these headlines. And they discuss why they don't like them. But Lily's is
Yeah.
that she's spiraling. Rose is that she's a bitch, which is more meaningful when it comes from Vogue, which is
Obvious.
a publication that she actually kind of respects, and they're calling her a bitch. Daisy's says that she's following in Lily's footsteps. Connors says that Scott has sold a seventh sex tape of Rose and Connor and is like the wealthiest porn distributor. And then Reichs says that he got in a fight with the paparazzi. But Lowe's talks about the molestation rumors. And as he continues to read this article, he comes to find out that they are now suggesting that Lily's sex addiction was because Jonathan might have been molesting her as well. And that hurts Lowe even more.
Yeah. And you also, before they, well, I don't know
I
if we
do
see.
appreciate that, like, Reich still questions whether Jonathan could ever do that to Lowe because he's seen the way Jonathan's treated Lowe. But when it's suggested that it's Lily,
He's,
Reich is like, there's no way Lowe would ever let Lily near Jonathan. He would care. There's still the possibility that Lowe would stick around and get hurt by his dad, but Lowe cares enough about Lily that that's
yeah, he
something
wouldn't
that he
allow
would
that.
absolutely put to a stop first.
Before the magazines, you get the "You're my favorite four-letter word"
Yes.
quote, which I just love.
So sweet. We all know Reich's.
Yes, we do. But he has desensitized it for Daisy, and she says it might as well just be foot.
Yes. I think he does. Between reading his POV and Sully's POV, I have a really, really potty mouth. And
Yeah.
according to my dad, I have said things before in like arguments in front of family friends. Like I'm arguing with my dad about something, and I will surprise family friends when I drop fuck.
Yeah. It's
And I don't
definitely,
notice it.
it comes out a lot more for me after I've read Reich and Daisy's book and Sully's books. Whatever.
Yeah. I don't complain. Listen, they do it and they sound cool, so I
Yeah,
shall do it.
those meadows.
So later in the night, Reich and Daisy are alone in one of the tents. They had tried to group off as the all girls and the all boys tents. And again, another just moment that I love to picture where it was Daisy's explaining what happened, that Rose was so uncomfortable with all the bugs and she rolled onto Lily and she couldn't do it. And Reich says Rose comes up to the tent and she's got a freaking axe with her, and Connor just reaches out like imagining because Lowe is scared. He's honestly he I think Reich says something like Lowe maybe it crossed his mind that Rose was going to kill him.
Yeah, it says,
Yes, she unzipped the one I was in, bracing an axe in her hand like she was ready to murder all of us. I think the thought seriously crossed my brother's mind. And then, so yeah, we're picturing Rose in all of this terrifying glory, and Connor's just like, yeah, that's my wife. Come here.
melted like a feral cat turned into a soft kitten.
I just love picturing that. And then Lily wanted to be with Flo, which of course means that Reich is with Daisy.
I'm really surprised they get away with this,
I
if I'm being
know.
honest.
I know. I'm surprised by it too. I
With
said it
all of it.
first.
Like, I'm surprised all of it happens without anybody saying a word.
Yeah. Well, because apparently Connor could hear them in the motel room.
Right.
They learned real fast. But yes, so with Reich and Daisy in the tent, they finally have sex for the first time.
Finally. It's better than chocolate.
Yes, she's in the better than chocolate league, which means she's finally in. Is this the part where he's like, "You're finally in the league that you were meant to be in"?
Yeah, that you're supposed to be playing in.
Yes.
I like it here, the better than chocolate league.
Yes. And Reich says that he would. I'd fucking fight for you, Days. You just have to let me. Even your brother, even.
And so you get that full circle moment from earlier in the book when
Yeah.
he says, fuck if I have to pick between the two of them.
Yes, he knows.
And now
what his
he
choice is.
does.
Yes, he knows what his choice is.
Yep.
So then later, Daisy's got her insomnia. She's not sleeping. So
Yep.
they're just laying in the tent, and she asks about Reich's tattoo, and it's the phoenix with the anchor tied around its feet. And she thinks that she's the anchor, that she's caused a lot of stressors in his life, and she's wondering if she has weighed him down. And he explains what the whole thing is, that there was like a track meet and Jonathan showed up to watch him, and Reich could hear when some guy asked Jonathan who he was there for. Jonathan does not claim Reich. He's like, that's my friend's kid. I'm here to watch him. And Reich was like, I am so tired of being erased by you. Like, our relationship does not exist. You make it not exist. I am not your son. So when the race starts, Reich does not run. And he purposefully loses to stick it to Jonathan. And I appreciate Reich's coach for recognizing in this moment what he was doing. And he tells Reich, I could be anything and do anything, and no one can stop me but me. You are your own anchor, Reich. When you fail, you hurt yourself more than anyone else. Do what you want to keep. Do you want to keep burning, or are you going to let yourself rise? And Reich wants to let himself rise. So he is the phoenix and he is the anchor.
That sound that you and I have both used for reels
Yes.
plays on loop in my head. But anyways, back when I was talking about the anchor. This is what.
Yes.
This was in the first episode.
Yeah.
The previous episode where I said he like anchors in to go get to Daisy, and I wonder, like, is that a symbolism of him anchoring to himself and saying, I'm gonna rise from the ashes. Like, I don't know how that works out in my head. I haven't really thought that through, but that the anchor
Definitely
correlation.
Yes. Yeah. Could be. And then Daisy also asks how Reich knew that he loved running and climbing. And he says, when you find something you love, you can't quit. Every failure pushes you harder. It's in your soul and in your fucking heart. And this feels more meaningful when you go into the plot points of Long Way Down. But
Yeah.
I appreciate that it was mentioned here as well.
Yeah.
Something to remember. So the next morning,
this cracks me up.
Reich climbs out of the tent. Rose and Connor are already up, and Reich accuses them of cheating. The whole conversation of, like, they have gas station coffee. They have some kind of Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and Reich calls them a couple of fucking cheaters. We did not cheat. You can't buy coffee while you're cheating. I've never heard of these rules.
Love how the worst thing you could say to Rose and Connor is that you're cheating.
I know. That's very offensive.
Very offensive. And then Connor tells him, you're glowing, by the way. Fuck off, Cobalt.
Yes. So they know what happened between Reich and Daisy the night before. I don't know how low.
I do. He's just wrapped up in Lily.
Connor shares a quote. Like, I think he says, don't quote Confucius to me. And Connor actually quotes Confucius. And yes, of course if you make a mistake and do not correct it, this is called a mistake. Of course he goes and actually quotes Confucius. Fuck me. But then Connor does give him a quote that he appreciates.
Mm.
which is wheresoever you go, go with all your heart. And Reich thinks of Daisy
Yeah.
when he hears this, that he just wants to be all in when it comes to Daisy, and he doesn't want to hide the
Yeah.
fact
He
that
wants to
he's
be out of it.
yes, going with his whole heart. And that means that he needs to tell Lo. But
Right.
then they notice that there are cameramen around their campsite. Which fucking sucks. The paparazzi found them, and Reich has to go help Daisy out of the tent because, again, no one knows that she has her scar, and they're trying to hide that and help her hide that until she's ready to share that information however she wants to. So then the group winds up splitting up to lose the paparazzi, and Reich and Daisy take off in a sports car, and we see a little more of just like their dynamic, that even when they're together, like Daisy gets a little antsy just sitting in the car, and Reich gets annoyed with her, like, Daisy, stop that, just roll down the window. And she's like, the car has revolted against me, I can't roll down the window anymore. So Reich tries to help her. He opens the sunroof so that she can stick her head out, and then he fingers her
He does.
while a minivan is driving next to them.
That is so good.
It's just so them.
It is so them.
And Daisy
There
doesn't.
are kids on this road.
Yes. Then, what is it like? Then they'll get a good education or something like that.
Yeah. They're gonna fucking learn about it sooner or later. Might as well learn how to do it the best way.
Fair enough, Reich.
Fair enough.
And then he slams on the gas and peels away. And then into the next chapter, they finally ditch the car because Daisy is just too hyperactive for it. Reich buys a motorcycle, and Daisy went to the gas station and bought some hair dye. And Daisy shares some of her cheesy pickup lines with him, and Reich tells her that her list of pickup lines is so insane. But she's like, it looks like they worked. I have you.
Through that.
So true. So then one day on the road trip, Reich pulls over into a cornfield to have sex with Daisy, and he gets her off while she's sitting on his shoulders, which some of these, I'm just trying to picture the logistics of it.
Literally logistics.
But yes. And afterwards, Daisy is just so surprised by how easily Reich can get her to orgasm
Yeah.
after all of the struggles that she's had. And she says it must be because she's so attracted to him. It pivots then into this conversation about like future expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's like, if I'm so attracted to you, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to make love and make babies. So it's
Make
kind
baby.
of this, do you want to have babies? Do you want to get married? And Reich does confirm that he is not like Lo. I'm not like my little brother, if that's what you're wondering. I do think alcohol may be an issue for whatever fucking kid I have, but this disease isn't going to take anything away from me. I won't let it.
Mm.
Amen to that, Reich.
Yep.
So yes, he wants to get married and have kids, but then Reich wants to know what Daisy wants, because that's very important. And Daisy says, I want to be fully committed to someone, to be married, probably earlier rather than later. And I do want babies, maybe like 3. I also want to travel and visit the Great Seven Wonders and scuba dive and stand beneath a waterfall in Costa Rica kissing you. Not in that order, but he doesn't discount any of her wants, which
Right.
is just, he wants all
Because
of
he
it.
wants all of it too.
Yes, he does. It's not just like he wants her to be happy, but also at the same time, like they're so similar that what she wants is what he wants, and that's just perfect. What more could we ask for? So then the next chapter, Reich gets a call from Connor because the rest of them are stopping in Roswell, and Connor tells Reich to take their time getting out to Utah. They're going to meet up in Utah again. And so Reich and Daisy go hiking to Devil's Tower, and she dyes her hair on the way. All sorts of crazy colors, which is
We
perfectly her.
love.
And Reich talks about the fact that he's climbed Devil's Tower, but he's super humble about the fact that, like, I don't think he even says it out loud. She just asks how fast he was able to climb it. And then in his head, he says that it was only 2 minutes away from, like, the world record or something like that. Like,
Yeah, he says 20 fucking minutes. And then in his head says 2 minutes shy of the record. And she says, you say it so blasé. Aren't you proud?
yeah, no, he's humble about these types of achievements. So she'll brag about it for him, and she like hops up
Yes.
on a
I
rock. And
love
she's like,
this.
the birds, animals.
I have an announcement.
Birds, people, trees, please listen up.
I think this is the first time she calls him her boyfriend.
Yes, my boyfriend right there. He climbed that mountain. And hey, he did it in 20 fucking minutes. Not just 20 minutes, 20 fucking minutes.
Rejoice!
Rejoice! So cute. But after their hike, Daisy worries about what's going to happen when they meet up in Utah because she's really loved being so out in the open with Reich and doesn't want to go back to having to hide. And they agree that when they get to Utah, they will tell her family what's going on, that they're dating. So then they're back on the road. While Reich is driving the motorcycle, Daisy decides that she wants to feel like she's flying. And she stands up on the back of the motorcycle. And at first, Reich is like, what the fuck are you doing? But then is like, yeah, go for it. Okay, let's try it out. And so she stands up on the back, and then he slows down stops, and then urges her to try a different position, which is her sitting at the front facing him, which is, what she wanted to try out at the beginning.
Yeah, except he takes it even further, which is really what she wanted to try out at the beginning.
Yes, they have sex on the bike.
Yes. Which I do like the full circle of it all. That I mean, the last time you see her in this position on this bike,
Yes.
she's getting absolutely chewed out by love.
Yes.
And she's not allowed, she doesn't think she's allowed to
Right.
be with Ryan.
And I love that it was like this silly question that she had at the beginning, like, can we try out this position? Will it work? And Reich is like, yes, fine. Let's just try it out. Let's see. But then it eventually gets to this point where he's like, well, we're in this position and like we're in this situation where we have the motorcycle and you wanted to try it out. Let's try it out for real.
Yeah.
You wanted to try this and I will help you with whatever you
And
want.
and
And
it goes back to he doesn't discount anything that
no,
she
he
says.
does not. He will fulfill all of her fantasies because we know
Right.
what she was really fantasizing about on that bike by asking him. All right, so they've finally arrived in Utah at the meetup spot and they hike out to where everyone else is. And there is immediate tension. And
Which has been building for the entire book.
yes.
Like this tension alongside the romantic tension between Daisy and Reich.
Yes.
This has been nearly as strong as the tension between Daisy and Reich.
Yeah, it keeps being brought up at the end of all of these chapters. Like we get the sweet
Right.
moments, but we're also getting these moments. And so Lo says that he is mad at Reich. First, so Reich, he's upset with Reich because he's not talking to Jonathan or to Sarah and accuses him of being a coward and that he's like egging Reich on to hit him at this point, which is something that Reich just, that's
Will not do.
yes, that's been stated. Like he does not want to hurt his brother. He does not ever want to physically hurt his brother. But he wants to know why Reich is being so stubborn about not defending Jonathan. And it's not just because like Lo wants to know why he won't believe him. It's not just like, why won't
Right.
you defend dad? It's in this same instance, I'm telling you that Jonathan has not done any of this to me. And why won't you believe me? It's not just about dad. It's about his brother. And Lo just keeps pushing and pushing. It's like, what did their dad do to him that would make him so angry? Because Lo's like, well, he was verbally abusive to me. And like, I've kind of had a shitty life too. Like, what could you possibly have lived through that was worse than what I was dealing with? And Reich finally breaks and tells Lo that it was because Reich's existence was like trying to be erased, that he didn't have a mom and he didn't have a dad. He wasn't allowed to have those things, and Lo was given those things, and he was just so angry that this was his life. And Lo says, "I just wish you could love me more than you hate him." And and then Reich does finally come to the realization that like this entire time, because he has refused to help Jonathan, it's
Hurting
mostly
love.
just been hurting Lo. That's the big consequence of his decision. And that he needs to figure out how to come to terms with helping Jonathan because it will help Lo in the long run. And
Yeah.
then once we finally get that over, we're like, oh, thank God they finally worked this out. Like this has been this thing from chapter one that Lo has been so frustrated with Reich about. We finally aired it out, gotten it off their chests. And then Lo's like, that bruise right there, that's for fucking my girlfriend's little sister, by the way. And you're like, oh fuck, not
I
again. How we
forgot about this.
yes, damn it.
I also love the other four in this scene and how Connor outruns Daisy to grab her and
Yes.
pull her back. And Lily's like, I love your hair.
I know. Love the hair days. But yes, this is definitely something that Reich and Lo need to work out on their own without any interference from the other four. This is something that has been going on between the two of them, and it needs to be just the two of them addressing it.
Right.
So then we get the next fight between
All of which has to happen. Like,
it does. All of this needs to be aired out at this point. It's just
and you never get the sense that one or the other is not going to be in each other's lives
right.
because of this. You
Right.
always get the sense that we're going to work this out. It's going to be painful, it's going to be hard, and we're going to fight, but we're going to work it out.
Yes, I'm thinking out loud, but like I'm saying that it's their family, but then I know that a lot of people are getting to this point where like if you have toxic family, then cut them out. So it's not necessary like being family doesn't necessarily mean that they will always be in your life. But I think there is also this sense of, well, like they're making the effort to be in each other's lives and
Yeah.
trying and I don't want to say change, but like kind of
Just.
change, adjust to fit in each other's lives and make that effort to not be toxic and be like that helpful guiding force in each other's lives so that it comes to this point where like yeah there's no way that they're gonna have this fight and cut each other out because they're family and like that there's just no way that they would never have each other in their
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. This isn't a toxic relationship,
No,
though.
no,
Like,
not at all.
and
I'm just thinking like I'm making this blanket statement that like oh
yeah.
yeah they're
No, yeah.
family, but like yes, that's you can cut out toxic family. So it's not just
Yes, absolutely.
this blanket.
And also, nearly every one of these characters, other than maybe Reich, is in therapy. And so I think that that is also what adds to it not being a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I knew exactly what you're saying, but I think it's worth mentioning
Yeah.
this is not a toxic relationship
No,
at
no,
all.
no,
These
no.
are just broken people in relationship.
Yes. But I was trying to get to that point of yeah, there's no sense of that when they get into this fight that something could be so detrimentally broken that they would not be in each other's lives anymore. That would not happen. So we learned that a photographer caught Daisy and Reich kissing while they were hiking at Devil's Tower, and one, Daisy and her scar are like now
On
revealed to the
display.
public. Yes. But also the fact that she and Reich are romantically together, confirmed. Says every accusation that he can throw at Reich about the age gap, that she was just some hot piece of ass that he couldn't wait to.
Such an asshole in this.
Yes.
To Daisy.
Yes. But Reich finally admits that he's had feelings for Daisy for years, but this is something that like he knows that he needed to repress. Like he was never planning on ever crossing that line with her. He was planning to take his feelings to the grave, but he fell in love with her. And
he explosively tells Lo
yes,
that.
I fucking love her. I fell in fucking love with her. It hurt to be away from Daisy. It hurt to watch her with other guys. Everything fucking hurt, and I didn't want to live with that pain anymore. I fucking couldn't. Which I think was like the exact right thing for him to
Yes.
say to Lo, because that is where Lo can empathize with
Yeah.
him
If
so much.
anybody gets that, it's Lo.
Yes. Lo even asks him like,
Did it hurt? How much did it hurt?
yes.
And then you
How much
finally
watching
get,
with other guys.
yeah, and you finally get this. He says same, and like you finally get Lo's understanding, and Reich in no way is being manipulative of Lo by saying that in order to get him to empathize with him. But it's true. And I think you just continue to see the parallel of Lo and Reich
Yeah.
in this moment. And you finally get a little bit of Lo's, like, almost like I can see his countenance of him just saying, like, yeah, I
Yeah,
get it.
I get it.
And you get I need some time, but I'm not going to hit you again. So revel in that.
Yes. And this is also a little before that. I got ahead of myself, but Reich tells Lo that even if Lo leaves him in the desert, there's no way that Reich is ever going to leave Daisy, and he's not going to leave Lo either. That no matter how hard he tries to push him away, he will be there. And this is very full circle moment
Yeah.
to Reich's note at the beginning of the book that he's hard to get rid of. He's not going to go
Yeah.
away. And that's true. No. So
It is true.
Lo is finally, he needs to get his head wrapped around this a little more, but he's not going to hit Reich and be angry
Yes.
about him over this anymore. And they finally walk out of the desert side by side, moving forward into the future after airing out their past and their present.
And I have a lot to say about this scene, but I'll keep it relatively short. This is with Lo and Reich, this is the midway point.
Yeah.
Because the beginning, you have Lo behind Reich.
Yes.
Now you have them walking together.
Yes.
And then soon we will have them running together.
Yes.
And it's just this moment where Lo waits for him is nearly one of the best things.
I love it.
Of just like the forgiveness and the acceptance and just like
I've been
waited.
waiting for so long.
That's all I had.
Yeah. So then it's Lo's birthday, aka Halloween, and they're all going to a Mexican restaurant to celebrate. And Lo orders tequila shots for all the non-sober people. And Lily says she doesn't want her shot. And Rose and Connor seem to be having a standoff. And Connor starts speaking in French, and Daisy notes how well Reich can hide that can understand what they're saying. And then it goes into Reich's point of view.
Wait. Lo pointing at the coffin and saying, "Go back to bed," to Rose is so funny to me. And then she's like, "Oh, you want to hear this?" And then she starts talking, and I love the "Get over it, Lauren. They're fucking his." And then Connor is fast, his hand flying back over her mouth. Like, you can just see Connor like, "Oh shit, what is she doing?" She's still like going beneath his hand. Okay, I'm ready for Reich's point of view.
Yes. So then, so it ended with Daisy being impressed that Reich can hide how well he understands Rose and Connor talking in French. And it gets into his perspective, Reich's perspective. And Rose is basically playing chicken with Connor over this tequila shot. And Connor stops her, and Reich is taking a sip of his drink. And right as he does that, Connor says in French that Rose is pregnant. And Reich does a spit take.
Yes, he does a spit take, and just like that, his cover is blown. Fucking fuck.
And everyone's like, I just love how this all gets announced. Like, oh God, the chaos of it. Like, everyone's looking at Reich like, oh my God, you understand everyone. Like, Lo,
Yes.
Lily, Rose, and Connor are all looking at him like, oh my God, you understand French. And Reich decides, all right, I gotta get some of this heat off me. And it's, well, stop looking at me about the French. Maybe you should be more concerned about the fact that your wife is pregnant and was about to take a tequila shot to one up you. And like, oh, of course, that's the way that everyone else is going to find out that Rose is pregnant, through Reich.
I know. And
Sure, it makes sense.
I always point out Connor's reactions to things because I find Connor such an interesting character, and I love Connor so much. But I love how even Connor is surprised.
Yes.
And you see a lot of Connor's surprise when it comes to Reich. And I love how Reich is very uncomfortable with how Connor is looking at him. And Rose says, "Go choke on your water again."
Yeah, she's not usually so harsh to Reich. That's something she reserves for Lo, but
Lo.
she's kind of annoyed with him in this moment. But yes, so Rose is pregnant, and she is 8 weeks along, a little longer than Connor thought. or suspected.
Sucks.
Yes, but now we know why she was fighting and pushing him away so much throughout the entirety of this book.
And of course, Connor says birth control is only 99% effective. We're, of course, in the 1%.
The 1%. And then Rose is like, use condoms with Daisy. But yes, so a little bit more about was scared about being pregnant because their plan had been for her to be 35 or older before they finally started having babies. So this is like way ahead of schedule, and she was scared. And Lily knows that Lily was aware that Rose was pregnant, and Rose admits that she almost terminated her pregnancy too, but that Lily talked her out of it.
And I love knowing what I know about Rose and Connor and their children.
Yes.
And just how glad I am that it happened when it shouldn't have.
Yes. I could not imagine them waiting till 35. But yes, so the chapter ends with, for the most part, everyone's feeling a lot happier now that more of this news has been aired out. But Reich still is thinking about the future, and he knows that there are still roadblocks ahead, most specifically Greg and Samantha.
Connor, who understands him at a level that not many people do, says, everything will be fine, my friend, in French. And I really do think Reich holds on to that for the rest of his life.
Yes. Connor has said that he doesn't believe in magic, but his words hold a possession all their own, filling me with serenity, a temporary calmness that I am grateful to have before my climb.
And then he just repeats his words like a mantra, you know? And I love that he trusts Connor's words, you know?
He does. You can believe in Connor's words. So they've finally made it to California. Daisy gets a couple of texts from her parents. Greg wants to talk about Reich. Samantha wants to talk about the scar. Yes. But Reich is getting ready to climb, and he goes around and he says like his goodbyes before he starts climbing, and he does not say anything to Daisy. He just walks away, and she chases after him, and first she appreciates that no one was like, Daisy, don't run after him.
Stop. Yeah.
Yes, Daisy, stop. It's just, yeah, you're allowed to do that because he's your boyfriend.
Yeah.
But then Reich says to her, I was waiting for the sun to chase me. And then she tells Reich that she loves him more than she loves chocolate cake.
And then he says, don't miss me too. Oh, the flower crown is so sweet and so cute. Yes. And then he says, don't miss me too much, Calloway. And then he starts to drift back towards the rock, his hand leaving mine. This is it. I watch Reich Meadows climb. And I love these, like, I think I wrote this in the notes way, way further up, but I love how they end these chapters with these very repeatable lines that come back over and over and over again. It makes it so meaningful, and they don't just come back in this book. They come back in Long Way Down, and they come back in Some Kind of Perfect.
Yes, and just throughout the series.
Yeah.
A+ on the writing.
A+.
Yes.
A++.
So Reich finally starts the beginning of his free solo climbs. Quick chapter. I ascend towards the summit.
He always is. He is always ascending towards the summit of everything.
Yes. So into the next chapter, we learn that Reich has successfully free solo climbed the Yosemite Triple Crown. And now everyone is on their way home via private jet. And
they're not on the jet yet, are they?
No, as they're walking to the jet, Reich is on the phone with Sully. And he tells Reich about the photo of Reich and Daisy kissing near Devil's Tower, and kind of proving like that this photo is so popular that it's like international news at this point. And Reich does mention that even though this happened weeks after the Paris riot, this is the fact that Daisy has her scar on display and she's kissing Reich as people have found hope and inspiration after.
And you see the importance to Sully that this is what he brings up. Yeah. And of course, I know that they've talked about the Triple Crown before you get to this chapter, but he is the one who's like, hey man, you got the girl. I saw it. And he like brings up the picture. It's just, we just love Sully.
Oh yeah.
And I love that he's like, wait, let me talk to Daisy.
Yes. Also,
I love that.
I love that he's like, please, please invite me to the wedding.
Yes.
Something about like I don't even care if I'm in the wedding party. I just want to be there. Yes. So then they finally go out to the plane and they realize whose plane it is. It's Jonathan's. He's come to pick them up. He is waiting on board and he did not come alone. Greg and Samantha are also waiting.
A real hot-tempered triad.
Yeah. God. So, next chapter, they're on the plane at this point in the air. Samantha is upset with Daisy about her scar and not having heard from her about it, that she had to learn through the media. But she wants Daisy to go to a plastic surgeon to try and get it removed, and then she can go right back to modeling. And Daisy's like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to use my voice here.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to tell Samantha that she fucking hates modeling and that the only
Yeah.
reason she ever did it was to make her mother happy. And she's tired of that. It has made her so miserable and she is depressed. And she's not going to do what her mother wants just because
Yeah.
Samantha's asking her to. And then I just need to be the one to decide. Samantha gets kind of defensive when Daisy pushes back, but it's that I just need to be the one to decide the direction of my life, which yes, Daisy's the one in the driver's seat of her own life, and Samantha,
Yeah.
you can leave the car.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Samantha comments on Daisy's hair, her hair color and her haircut, calls it ugly, and that bless Rose, she's like, it's her taste.
And I love Rose for this because what we know about Rose
Oh, yes.
that's coming is that she is a champion of everyone's taste.
Yes. Do what you want. Yes. So Rose is like, that's in her taste, and Samantha's like, well, she has horrible taste. Which, whatever. But then she accuses Reich of putting all of these ideas in Daisy's head, that she's changing everything about herself for a guy. And Daisy's like, no, this is like, Reich has always just wanted me to be myself, and this is who I am, which I love. And she also talks about Daisy understands that she is also her own anchor.
Yes.
She has weighed herself down, but
she's ready to
yes, she could keep burning or she could let herself rise, and she's going to let herself rise. She's finally ready to. And then meanwhile, Reich is in a separate part of the plane and he is sitting with Greg and Jonathan, who are interrogating him about his intentions with Daisy. Jonathan's just super blunt about like, did you think about her when she was underage, and just like making Reich so uncomfortable. And Greg can sense this, which I mean, thank you, Greg, for understanding this, but also like you're such a fucking.
Well, I think it should give Greg a little bit of like, okay, he's uncomfortable even thinking about that, so I can trust that that was not going on.
Yes. Okay, we can give Greg that. I will be willing to grant him that.
I'll give Greg a little bit of credit. Now Samantha gets zilch, but whatever.
Yeah. But Reich understands that Greg was okay with him being around Daisy. It was like, well, if you didn't want me to be with her, why were you always okay with like me hanging around her? You should have been trying to push me away at all costs. And Reich realizes that because he could keep up with Daisy, Greg kind of looked at him as
the bodyguard,
a second bodyguard for Daisy. But eventually Reich does finally accept that Reich hasn't done anything wrong, but he does question how long he and Daisy will truly last, because Reich's longest relationship was only like 4 months. So he's just at this point where it's like, you're going to have to stay with her to prove to me that you are actually serious about her.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
In a way. I mean, like,
yes, I appreciate that. Like, it wasn't like pulling teeth, and
yes, it wasn't
a big
pulling
fight.
And also, I think it's fair for a parent who does love their child to hope that you prove them right or wrong. You know, like that they would say, I I want to trust you, but I don't know that I can yet because I don't know you,
Yeah.
you know?
And I
And
want
I
to get
think
to know you.
that's fair. Yeah.
And to that extent, Reich does realize that if he is going to allow Greg to get to know him and get to know Greg in return, he has to be more involved in his dad's life because Greg is Jonathan's best friend, and
Right.
that means that Jonathan has to be more involved in Reich's life, and he needs to be okay with that. And he says,
Our next chapter.
well, yeah, I did want to say that, like,
Oh, sorry.
it means having to get closer to Jonathan, and that's a sacrifice that he is willing to make. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So then we get to the next chapter where Daisy somehow winds up in one of the plain cabins with just Lo and Jonathan. And first we watch as Daisy is witnessing the dynamic between Lo and Jonathan,
Right.
because Lo has been on this road trip or he was in Paris and then on this road trip, like he's kind of let some of his business duties slide a little bit, and Jonathan is getting on him about this, and not in a kind way. Like, he's obviously annoyed, but he's mean about it.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan turns his attentions to Daisy, and he wants to question Daisy so that he can get to Reich. And Lo doesn't want Jonathan to use Daisy because he knows that Reich would be angry if Daisy were ever to be used as, like, is collateral the word?
Yeah. As
More
bait,
like a
even.
a pawn.
Like bait.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and I think also, like, Lo doesn't want her to be used as a pawn, but he also doesn't want her to be alone with Jonathan.
Yeah.
Like, there's a level of Lo acknowledging Jonathan's not safe in this scene, and you know, he continues to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But I think in this moment with Daisy sitting there, he's like, oh no, I'm not leaving her alone with him.
No. Yeah. So Lo pulls Daisy away, and they try and escape Jonathan into another cabin. And Jonathan is, like, banging on the door, yelling, and eventually Reich comes in because he could hear Jonathan yelling. And Lily then pops up out of. She was sleeping in this cabin.
So cute.
She pops up and kind of gets the recap of what was going on, and she looks to Lo, and they, like, whisper to each other, and then they turn to Daisy and they say, "Welcome to the family," referring to the Hale family. And Daisy comes to the realization that she always pictured Lo as an extension of the Calloway family. In actuality, Daisy is kind of realizing that Lily is just an extension of the Hale family, and that she was always part of his. And now Daisy gets to be part of the Hale family and all of their drama, which is like that we get this start because poor Daisy has been, like, all of her sisters have grouped off in these different ways, and she's always been the one that's been excluded. And now there is this new group that's being formed, and
Yeah.
it's this new
And
Hale.
she's included in it.
Yes, and this is something
Even
that
though
he
it's
gets
a
to be
little,
included in. It's kind of fucked up. She says that it's fucked up,
it
or
is
that
fucked
they're
up.
fucked up. So they finally land, and Greg and Samantha leave first, and as the rest of them separate off into their cars to go home, all of a sudden the police show up, and they arrest Reich for statutory rape. And Reich knows right away who did it. He knows that it was Samantha. Reich is getting arrested. At first, he's going willingly, and then Lo understands what's going on, and he fights
Yes.
for.
And he says he didn't do anything.
Yes, he.
And this is kind of the first time you see Lo actually take up for Reich and
Yes,
Daisy's relationship.
yes, he's fully sticking up for them and trying to fight the police about this, and then Reich winds up fighting the police so that Lo's over here like, no, he didn't do it, and Reich is fighting the police, being like, no, don't hurt my brother, Lo, stop it.
Let me, just take me.
Yes, the chaos. So then into the next chapter, Reich is in the jail. He has not been booked or charged yet, and Jonathan shows up. He wants to talk with Reich. Jonathan comes in and he's like, I have my lawyers taking care of this, like, they'll get you out of here. And Reich is kind of like, I don't want your help. You're coming in here right now and it feels disingenuous because it feels like you're coming in here and you're going to help me and you're going to want me to speak up for you and clear your name in the media. And I don't want to do that. And Jonathan does make his attempt at apologizing to Reich that he had a tough choice when it came to Lowe. That Jonathan did actually commit statutory rape with Lowe's mom because she was underage. And they needed to keep that secret because Emily, Lowe's mom, didn't want him. So if Emily wasn't going to take him and Jonathan was in jail, then it was like, what was going to happen to Lowe? Which is something that Reich hadn't truly thought about at that point. So Jonathan does say that he wants Reich in his life and he doesn't want, like, he's doing this purely to be in Reich's life. He doesn't want anything from him. He just wants to have his son be in his life. Even if Reich is angry at him, as long as he's there, he'll be happy. And Reich does confront Jonathan about how badly he's treated Lowe, and they talk about that. And finally, it comes to the point where Reich is finally willing to put the past behind him and move forward. But he does ask his dad, would you be willing to stop drinking for Lowe and me? Just big question to ask.
Is
And
but it's almost like that's what it would take for Reich.
yes. I mean, yeah, that's fair. I think a lot of Jonathan, not all of it, but a lot of Jonathan's anger and cruelty can kind of stem from the fact that he is also an alcoholic. And if he can take this step to maybe being a better dad, then yeah, I think that's a fair ask of Reich. That if you want to be in my life, I need you to be a better dad. And I think this is the step that you need to take and prove to me that you are willing to do that for us. And we learn in the next chapter that Jonathan's answer is yes. And he throws out all of his alcohol and he's going to try and stay sober. And Lo is very happy about this. He's like so excited talking about all of the steps that Jonathan is taking, like throwing out the alcohol, getting his sober coaches. And then Lo asks, there's like a moment where Lo asks Reich if that he has these comic book manuscripts that he's trying to decide on, and would Reich be willing to read them? And Reich's like, are Lily and Connor not available to do this? And he's like, no, I wanted your opinion on them.
I love seeing how Lowe trusts Reich with this. And then just as they all continue to grow, what these little moments where they each trust each other with big things in their life. And, those little moments where you get that, thanks for asking me to do this, and this is the moment for Reich where he's like, thanks for asking me and not anybody else.
Yeah. And it's also this moment of like he wants I think Reich says, yeah, but I can't promise that you won't hate my fucking opinions. I can definitely promise that, but that's not the point. I need someone to look at them a lot differently than me. And like, yes, Reich and Lowe are very similar in certain aspects, but they do come at life in different ways. That's okay. That they're finally finding a way that with their similarities and their differences, there's still this
Yeah.
middle point that they can reach. So the next chapter, Daisy is texting with Rose, and Rose's pregnancy news has finally like reached the media, and they're hounding them about this. And Rose wants to move so that they have better privacy and security. And she talks about possibly moving to Philly, which makes Daisy happy because that means her sister wants to be closer to her because Daisy is in
Yep.
Philly. And it's also mentioned that nobody really wants to talk about the idea of Rose and Connor moving because that also means Rose and Connor and Lily and Lo separating. They've been living together
Right.
for a long time at this point. And then Daisy gets a text from her mom, which she promptly ignores. And we learn that Reich and Daisy are planning to move in together.
Sweet things.
So sweet. They have sex again, and then afterwards, Reich asks Daisy if he needs to check the doors, and she says that a lot of her paranoia has kind of been relieved now that she has Reich. And it's not necessarily that like being in a relationship fixed her. It's more that Reich just provides this sense of security. She knows that he will take care of her 100%, that she is his priority, and that helps her a
But
lot.
I think the relationship proves that.
Yes,
You know, like I think it enhances that feeling
for sure.
of I'm safe with you and you are going to fight for me and I can trust you.
Yes.
I literally all this stuff is about to come full circle and I'm just
I know.
not prepared.
We're getting to all of the big chapters.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so it's movie night at the Princeton house,
Movie night.
and it's paused because Rose and Lo are fighting over the future living arrangements. Rose thinks that Lily and Lo should continue to live with her and Connor, and Lo understands that they're about to have a baby, and he doesn't want to live with Rose and Connor. He doesn't want to
Right.
be in their way, and
Ugh.
Daisy is getting texts from Samantha, and despite what she did to Reich, he is now the one urging Daisy not to make the same mistakes that he did with his mom,
Mm.
which is like Sarah did things that eventually hurt Daisy, and she's giving him permission to repair that relationship with his mom, and now it's the reverse of Reich giving Daisy permission to repair her relationship with her mom.
Okay.
And then Reich also confirms that Daisy is planning to tell her sisters about her sleep problems that night. And then all of a sudden, they realize that Lily isn't in the room with them and that she's been missing for about 20 minutes. She went to the bathroom. And we've talked about this in past podcasts that Lily suffers, like, she struggles with depression and she goes to the bathroom and sits in the bathtub when she's really struggling. So this
Yeah.
is like a scary moment.
Yeah.
Um,
And Lo says Lo doesn't even hesitate, he just runs.
yeah. So they find Lily crying in one of the showers, and she's apologizing to Lo, and everyone like quickly at first thinks that it's because Lily cheated on Lo, but no. We learn that Lily is also pregnant, and she's upset because Lo has been very vocal about the idea that they should not have kids. And she knows that he doesn't want to have kids, and she has not been sure how to tell him. He takes it pretty in stride. Like, for how vocal he was, as soon as Lily told him, he was like, maybe we shouldn't have kids, but we have the means to raise him or her well.
Yep.
And yeah, okay, let's do this. We're going to try. So good.
And Rose comes in and says, and you have us.
Yes, they have a support
And
system around them.
And then Reich says the same thing as you have us, we're here for you. And so like he just realizes, I think the thing that scared him for so long was that I'm going to be alone and my child's going to be an addict.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
one of those things is not true.
No.
He's not going to be alone.
Not at all. Whew. Okay. Kind of. It's okay. And then Reich realizes that Daisy is missing. She has been pushed aside for Lily's problem, and this was supposed to be a night of Daisy finally sharing with her sisters. And so Reich runs after Daisy. And we find out that Daisy drove her motorcycle to a bridge nearby because she needed air. And she just feels like she's in the way whenever Lily relapses or has an emotional event. And she just doesn't want to. She feels like she's taking up too much space. And so she needs to leave. And she's standing on the edge of this bridge and she wonders what it would be like to jump. Daisy. And then she hears someone calling for her.
Calloway.
Calloway! And Reich has found her on the bridge. And it's just so reminiscent of the time that she went to jump in Mexico in Ricochet. And Reich didn't want her to jump. But he climbs up next to her and it's, you jump, I jump. And he asks her, we really see that Daisy also struggles with depression. He asks her if she wants to die. This light inside her dims if you watch her closely enough. And she's searching and searching for something to ignite her spirit, a power to keep her alive. Yeah, Daisy is powered by the sun. She needs something light to power her. And then we get you're a hothouse flower. You can't grow under natural conditions. You need adventure and security and love in order to stay alive.
And she is suffocating. She's looking for a way to relieve the pressure. Explode, I tell her.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. He has been constantly telling her that she just needs to let out these emotions, and she finally does. He tells her she needs to scream, and she screams,
Hmm.
and it's so good. I'm so happy that Daisy, like, is finding her voice, that she, even when she's alone, like, that she has this voice that she can let out that she is upset and
Yeah.
scream like this. And then a driver comes past and tells them that they're crazy for standing on the edge of the bridge and calls, yeah, so he calls them crazy, and Reich and Daisy agree, and they wonder, will their babies be crazy like us?
New t-shirt, crazy like us.
But that is the first time we will hear that. It will not be the last. But that's how early, I'm fairly certain this was how early they were planning it.
Really?
I mean,
I love
so Reich and Daisy finally go back home, and Reich is with Lo and Connor, kind of just talking about whether Daisy's okay and the fact that Connor and Lo are about to be dads, what it'll be like to have kids. There's like one quick line. I already feel fucking awful for the thing. He may not have addiction problems, Lo. No, it's not that. Our kid is going to have to compete with theirs. It's already fucked and it's not even born yet. Connor's kid is also going to be a snot, so you can rest assured that yours won't be totally fucked. But just knowing
knowing what
about
you
these
know.
two kids
Yeah,
just makes me smile.
I know.
Okay, so back to the serious
Another
stuff.
another big chapter.
Yes, Daisy finally sits down with Lily and Rose and explains, one, that she has sleep problems, that she has insomnia, and it has stemmed from several traumatic events. One, the guy assaulting her with her bike. Two, the cameraman that snuck into her room. And three, when she was finally home in Villanova and at school, her friends
Those
started,
months that Reich was
yes,
talking
these
about.
10 months that they have been talking about the entire book that we don't know what's going on. We're finally learning that Daisy's friends started to make rude and snide comments about Lily's addiction and the fact that Daisy could potentially be a sex addict too. And one day, while they were hanging out and they get into an elevator after this brunch party, they stop the elevator and pull out a dildo and tell Daisy that a couple of guys from Dalton want to know how many inches would fit inside her and want to force her to show them, prove to them. And if Daisy doesn't do this, they will torment her for the rest of the school year. And I mentioned this to Allyn, and I'm cutting it out of that bit, but we saw at the beginning of Hothouse Flower when Daisy is trying to leave the hotel and she mentions the fact that she doesn't like to get into elevators unless there's someone that she trusts. This was the first time that I noticed that this horrible event happened in an elevator, and I do believe that this Daisy's fear of being alone in an elevator stemmed from this
Yeah.
moment. And this was, again, you don't catch these things unless you reread. And this is the first time that I caught it. Like, I have read these books 10 times at least, and this is the first time that I caught that. You just need to reread, people. You catch so many things.
Reread after you read Like Us.
Yes. But Daisy does decide that she's going to take the torment. She's not going to, she almost does, but she doesn't do anything with the dildo. And her friends make good on this threat and they torment her until graduation. It's months and months of time that they would stick things in her lockers and titty twisters and just like sexual assault essentially on
Yeah.
her for months. And it was her best friends that did this, which is just so heartbreaking. Her ex,
And which is why she has that theory
that,
that friends are forever.
right. And
I love before she tells the story about Leo and Harper, how Lily is the one who grabs her hand and says, "It's okay." And she says, like, because of course Lily is the one she doesn't want to tell
yes.
because it is it's Lily's fault. Like I
Yes,
just gave
it
it.
does that. It,
It's quote unquote Lily's because Lily's sex addiction was brought into the public
yeah.
that the girls are doing this. And so, like, she says, at first I hesitate, but I look up and Lily actually nods at me, encouraging me to continue. She says, "It's okay. My sister's strength floods into me and it propels me to continue like a gust of wind blowing me in the right direction."
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like you would expect that from Rose,
Yes.
you know?
But
But seeing Lily's growth to this point,
yes,
where she's like, "It's okay. Let's all heal.
we can.
Let's all move past this."
Yes. But she's strong enough that her
Yes.
sister, like, Daisy is not going to say it as bluntly as she did in that don't send note, essentially what
Yep.
was going on in her brain. Daisy's going to say it a little kinder, but Lily is at a point where she's strong enough that she can hear this, and it
Yes.
might hurt, but she's ready for it. She can take it.
Yes. And Rose, of course, her first reaction is, "Who is it?"
Yes.
And she is the "who did this to you?" This is the "who did this to you" trope. But Lily, in her small voice, gives Daisy her voice.
Yes.
When Rose is like, let's let's do
Yes.
action.
Battle.
Let's
Yes.
go.
Battle
Yes.
plans.
Lily said, "Let her finish, Rose." And I'm like, Lily.
And they're obviously very happy that Daisy has told them at the end of this. They're so glad that Daisy has shared this with them, and they affirm that, like, they weren't there for her before, but they are there for her now. They will continue to be with her, to support her.
And just, like, saying that they're sorry that it happened to her. I mean, like, obviously
Yes.
it's not their fault it happened to her, like, by no
Right.
means. But to hear that, like, "I'm so sorry that happened to you," is such a healing thing to hear. You know? Because it's hard to hear, like, "I get it." You don't get it. And with grief and with pain and trauma, to hear somebody say like, I understand what you're going through, is not helpful.
Right.
Like, it's what's helpful is, "I'm really sorry and I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm with you.
If you want to
Like,
talk about it, you can talk about it with me.
I can
Yeah.
listen." And she says she looks at Lily's hand in hers, and I love the visual of Lily's hand, how it's her nails unpainted and bitten to beds, but she has a beautifully strong grip, one that makes me feel okay and safe. And she hasn't said she feels safe with anybody else but Reich.
Right. Now she feels safe with
And
her
Lily,
sisters.
it's Lily that's the one that she feels safe
Yeah.
with. And I don't know if she feels safe with Rose, but it's just a sweet moment with Lily.
So while Daisy was sharing all of this with her sisters, Reich gives Lo and Connor a condensed version of what went down. And Rose comes in, and this was that moment that we kind of talked about. I can't remember what part it was, where but it was basically that Rose would be so upset that she missed all of these signs with Daisy, but at least she did have Reich. And this is that moment where we see that Rose is just,
Great.
she does understand that, yes, she did miss all of those signs, but she's so grateful that she did have Reich. And she comes in and Reich's like, "Is she about to yell at me about this?" And she says, "No,
Right.
thank you. Thank you for taking
Yeah.
care of her," which is, yes, that's perfect. And then Lily comes in. She's feeling low, that she had wished that had been her.
Yeah.
And we'll see more of how she takes this news in Thrive. But then after that, Lo turns to Connor and he asks if his offer still stands for them to move in together. But he also thinks that Daisy and Reich should move in too, so that Daisy can feel more secure and safe with all of them together. Which just makes me very happy imagining them all
Too.
together. Whew. I'm okay. I'm great. I can't wait for this next chapter.
Yeah, same.
So they have moved at this point. Reich and Lo are going for a run in their new gated Philly neighborhood.
Just preparing.
Reich gets a text from his mom, and Reich is finally ready to meet with her and talk with her. And he does text her back. And then we also learn that Reich gave his interview and denied all of the allegations against Jonathan. And he says that it was one of the hardest days of his life. But Lo says, "You said the hardest things are usually the right things." Right. It's not the first time that Lo has mentioned this, but it does feel like a more meaningful moment than I think it was in Addicted for Now. Something to remember, people. But then they decide to go for a run. and they're gonna race for this 5 mile run. And Reich says that when they start, they're in stride together and they're matching each
But
other.
also, Lo says, "You're not beating me this time, big brother." And when he says big brother, it's not, it's said with endearment. Somewhere along the way, I've earned the title. Yeah, no.
It's great. Everything's so great.
Our paces are mimicked stride for stride, leg for leg, step for fucking step. He runs right beside me. Our rhythm exactly the same. He pumps faster and I push harder. Matched. Let me just read the rest of it.
It's the part when he says, and then at 4 miles, and it's at 4 miles in when he leaves my side and takes 5 lengthy strides ahead that I know he's gonna outrun me. Lo is no longer feeling burdened and heavy and weighed down. We have seen him struggle with this since Addicted to You. He's finally feeling lighter. He has struggled with a lot. He has relapsed and he is feeling great.
I can't stop.
In case anyone was wondering, I was taking notes and I sent a text to Allyn that I had to take a pause and cry over taking notes about this chapter. And here we are. We're gonna take a pause and cry about this.
I just look back to book one and right coming into Lo's life, and little does he know what his life is going to look like years later with running stride for stride and actually outrunning his brother. Like, and I know what's to come in the next however many books from here, that he just continues to run unburdened.
We're great. Okay. Yes. So happy chapter. We love it. We love the growth.
Snowball fight.
We're fine. All right. Almost there. 2 more chapters. So it's snowy out. The sisters go out into the front yard. They're planning to ambush the guys when they come home with a snowball fight. And Daisy does get a text from her mom about meeting up for, like, if she'll be attending the Sunday luncheon. And Daisy says she's coming, but Reich is also going to be there. She's not trying to be kind to her mom about things. It's, I can't be fake to her. I can't be friendly when she's being rude, which, yes, thank you. She does not deserve it. She does not deserve your kindness in the face of her being rude. And the guys come home and they have a snowball fight. And Daisy is just so happy that she gets to be here as, like, in this moment as Reich's girlfriend, that it's not because he is her sister's boyfriend's brother or some convoluted relationship thing. It is that they are together. And Lily and Rose talk about potential baby names, and Daisy suggests to Reich that maybe having a baby of her own would make her closer to her sisters, but Reich does point out that at this point Daisy is enjoying her freedom and being unrestrained, and some of the things that she wants to do at this moment she can't do while she's pregnant. So maybe just
Right.
enjoy the moment, live in the moment, and go at life at 150 miles per hour. And when they're ready, they're ready. So then, final chapter, Reich says there's still a lot that he wants to do before he's fully ready to settle down and have babies with Daisy. But all of these things that he wants to do before then are, like, every time I imagine myself in another country after a climb, traveling, living, she's by my side. I know we'll make it a reality. I know that wherever she goes, I'll go. Wherever I go, she'll go. Yes,
Yep.
they're always next to each other. But then Reich tells Daisy that he wants to take her to Costa Rica for their next trip, because he's going to check off all of the things that she wants. He's going to make all of her fantasies come true. And then Daisy asks if her scar gives him bad memories of the riot in Paris. And he says, it reminds me of all the reasons why I fucking love you. You're wild and daring and so fucking crazy. I am proud to have you days just like this. And then I want to hear you fucking roar, Calloway. Her smile overtakes her face, and I stare right into her green eyes, ones that I will look into for so many more fucking years.
The perfect book. I don't know what to say.
Yes. I can't remember how many times I've mentioned this, but Hothouse Flower and Long Way Down are probably my favorite books, besides Some Kind of Perfect,
Yep.
These two are probably my favorite books in the Addicted series because it's not just a happy ending for Reich and Daisy. It feels like happy endings for all of the characters at the end of
Yep.
these books. It just makes me
Same.
so relieved. But we're not done. We still have to talk about the bonus scene.
Oh gosh. I don't even know if I've read this.
So this bonus scene is the Costa Rica trip. And it starts off with Reich and Daisy on the airplane flying out to Costa Rica. And Daisy asks what his most vivid childhood memory is. And he wants her to tell hers, which her vivid childhood memory just breaks my heart, which is basically that her parents went somewhere for an evening, so it was just her and her sisters, and they decided to do a sleepover. They were playing with the Ouija board, and Daisy was trying to scare Lily with ghost stories, and she was having a great time because she was hanging out with her sisters. And then Lo shows up and crashes, and Lily goes off with Lo. And then Poppy starts texting with her boyfriend. And then Rose leaves, and Daisy was forgotten. She wanted to keep
Yeah.
having this sleepover with her sisters, and they forgot about her. And we will see this mentioned later on. And then Reich, his vivid childhood memory was that he would open Christmas presents with his mom, and she hated the holidays because she was estranged from her family. So it was just him and her, and she's obviously not very happy and holly jolly during this. So one Christmas, Reich got on his bike and he went over to the Hale house because he wanted to see what Lo's Christmas looked like. If Lo was having what kind of Christmas Reich could be having that Lo was getting instead, which Lo wasn't even, the Hales weren't even at their house. They spent the holidays at the Calloway's house. But yes, so it's that Daisy was the forgotten sister and Reich was the forgotten son. But then they finally land in Costa Rica, and we learn that they're going to stay at Eddie's house. Eddie is a climbing friend of Reich's, and he has this tree house in the Costa Rican jungle, and that's where they're going to stay. And even though like it's a new place for Daisy and not somewhere that she automatically feels safe, she does still feel like she'll be okay because Reich is with her. And then I think the other important bit was that they wind up going for a hike. They take a 7-mile hike, and Reich takes her to a waterfall, and they climb. And there's one point where Daisy says when he climbs, she wants him to be careful. He's touched and influenced lives. His brother, my sister. People need him here. Amen, Daisy. Yes.
Amen, Daisy.
So they make it to this waterfall, and they kiss under the waterfall the way that Daisy asked. But then afterwards, they start jumping into the pool underneath, and Reich goes first. And then when Daisy goes, she slips and falls on a rock ledge slightly below, and then hops into the water. And Reich recognizes that Daisy fucked up her shoulder. I think she dislocated it and possibly broke a bone as well. But yeah, so that's the quick gist. It's been a long time that we've been talking that, and she tries to apologize for like ruining it. Yeah, she goes, "I'm sorry for ruining. I mean," she cuts herself short
Thank
at
you.
McClure. Thank you. And then he carries her back through this 7-mile hike, 7 miles through rough terrain, 1 hour to the house, maybe 2 hours to a hospital. We'll make it. We've been through worse. Yeah, you have. Oh, and there's another bit that we learn. There's a little more Reich lore that we learn that he did I believe it is pronounced the Atacama Crossing, which is an ultra marathon. It was 155?
Yeah, is
155.
155.
Yeah.
She chokes on her water and then pats her chest, as in 155 miles.
Yeah. So he ran this ultra marathon in Chile. And then at the very end, Daisy looks into it a little more, and she did a Google search on the Atacama Crossing, and Reich was 17, and she notes that he left out two important parts of his story. One, that he was the youngest competitor to ever run that race in its history, and two, he was the second fastest competitor, or second fastest completion time. And yeah, Reich is,
That right, Meadows.
yeah, he just, that humble Reich Meadows. I'm looking at the bonus text messages and it starts
I
out
know,
with
I just read them.
caw, 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 and Reich just goes, "What's up?" Yes. So that is the end of Hothouse Flower. I did have one question that I thought I'd ask that I forgot to ask about, which is something that I asked Krista and Becca about, and it was mostly
Oh,
just that Christina is the kind of friend that kind of, how did they put it? It was basically a vague answer about her just being that friend that you don't keep in touch with, but Christina was in the riot, and we literally never hear anything about her again after the riot. What do you think happened to poor Christina?
I don't know. I mean, I hope she's okay. I assume she continued on with Fashion
I
Week.
hope that she found. Well, I'm thinking more in the moment of
Oh,
like Reich pulled her out of the riot, and then Daisy goes down. He runs off to take care of Daisy, and Lo and Connor were
maybe
never really
Connor or
invested
Flo
in
helped
her. And
her.
I just want to know, like, where did Christina go?
Let's hope that Lo decided to redeem himself that night and he got her out before he went to.
Yes.
That's absolutely not what happened, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
maybe
something like,
even Ian got her out.
yeah, maybe she ran into someone that she recognized, someone else that she recognized. Like, yeah, we don't know too much about Christina, but it was the fact that she walked out with this group, and then they had this, and then we never hear
Yeah.
from her again.
Yeah, that's wild. I haven't even thought about that until I just read that right here.
So time for trivia question.
Gosh.
All right. This is a kind of like fill in the blank. What movie does Daisy quote at the beginning?
Mary Kate and Ashley movie. What is it called? It Takes Two.
Yes. Question two. What is the ring that Daisy won from? What is on the ring that Daisy won from Reich? Is it an
The
Irish coat of arms, Scottish coat of arms, English coat of arms, or a French coat of arms?
Irish.
It is an Irish.
A.
Yes. How many languages does Reich know how to speak besides English?
4.
Yes. What are those languages?
French, Spanish, Russian, Italian.
Yes. What was Daisy doing the first time Reich ever saw her? Drinking a fizz, making an origami rose, eating chocolate cake, or eating a pomegranate?
Eating a pomegranate.
Yes. I've never been embarrassed in my life. Who says this to who? Rose to Daisy, Connor to Reich, Connor to Daisy, Reich to Daisy.
I think it's Connor to Daisy.
It's Connor to Reich. What is Reich's tattoo?
It is a phoenix with an anchor.
What does,
An anchor with a phoenix rising from it.
yeah.
More like.
Who does Reich's tattoo symbolize? A. Jonathan and Reich. B. Daisy and Reich. C. Reich. Or D. Jonathan?
B. Reich.
Correct. And the last one. Her light restored, powered up, and fucking charged my blank blank that I will always keep alive. Fill in the blanks.
My Hothouse Flower.
Correct. 100%.
Miss Highest Honors.
Yes. Miss Highest Honors with her Addicted series knowledge. Look at you. All right. Well, that concludes part 2 of the discussion for Hothouse Flower. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, continue to stay addicted to Krista and Becca's writing like us.